everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to be unboxing and reviewing the Transformers Generations Haslab Victory Saber. You might be wondering, why am I not in my traditional review space? Because unfortunately this box is actually too big to fit in that space, but don't worry, after the unboxing portion of this video I will of course have them out of the packaging and we will go back to the traditional review space because those figures can actually of course fit in that space. So hopefully the lighting is good. I know there's a little bit of glare, but I'm trying my best and hopefully it looks good. So let's now of course get into the packaging and of course unbox this figure, but the artwork on the front actually looks very, very cool in my opinion. We actually do have two artwork shots, one of Saber and of course Victory Leo, and I really do like this kind of a blueprint grid pattern design. We also do have a really cool outline or sketch of Victory Saber in the back. We do have the Legacy logo, we do have Takara Tomy Generations, and of course the Victory Saber at the very bottom. If we do move to the side here, I'm going to move it back as far as possible. Hopefully you can see. I know there's some really bad glare right here. I'm going to try and have it as good as possible, but of course at the top we do have Autobot Saber, we do have Victory Leo, we do have the Brain of Courage, and of course the two mini cons at the bottom. Those are part of one of the tiers. I'm pretty sure it's the third tier. It is of course Autobot Fire and Autobot Holly. Let's now move to the back. And in the back, some really cool artwork of Victory Saber in his robot and his V-Star jet mode. Unfortunately, I think both these pictures are actually stock photos. I really would prefer them to be actual pictures that they took. But I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure those are digital renders or stock pictures, which is a bit unfortunate. And as for the final side, if we flip to the side right here, it is just Transformers in a really big text and size, done this really nice reflective red. And that is pretty much it for the outside packaging or the sleeve. So if you don't know, this whole sleeve section of course can be lifted up, and there is artwork on the inside, and I was really hoping and trying to show you the inside artwork of that sleeve, but it really would not stay because of course you can completely unfold this piece here. Of course the figure was shipped this way, so it really does not want to be able to be folded inside out and stay around this box. And I really didn't want to tape the box closed because of course when I take the tape off it could rip some of the box art off and it would look bad. So unfortunately I won't be able to show you the inside artwork in this video, but I will be able to take some pictures, and of course if you want to see those pictures they will be in the intro. So let me just take off the sleeve really quick. Hopefully the accessories do not fall. I'm just going to put these down here just in case. But if you're wondering what I'm talking about, there is some artwork on the inside there. And I really wanted to, of course, try and unfold it and put it on the outside, but it really just was not staying. But again, in the intro, I will take some pictures and put them there for you if you want to see that. But of course, let's now take a look at the figures and accessories really quick. So I'm going to move this the right way. There we go. I'm also going to move the camera down so you can see what I'm doing. Let's first up quickly take a look at the accessories. And I actually really do like this packaging. They kind of made it to look like sort of like a suitcase. That's kind of what I thought. It actually makes it seem kind of fancy and really cool. But of course the accessories here look very, very cool. We do have the main base of the stand. We do have the shield, the whole arm section of the stand, the adapter piece for the ship. We do have the blaster pieces. These are the same ones that came with the Jetfire from Siege or Shatterglass Jetfire, just done in a green, which I think looks pretty cool. We do have the two huge shoulder cannons and the blade of the sword, which is pretty cool. And if we do take this off to the side real quick, we do have, of course, both figures in the packaging, and this looks absolutely amazing. Let's zoom in as much as I can. I hope, really hope this is not blowing up with white because most of this figure is white. Hopefully you can see it, of course. Again, when I actually review the figures and take them out of the packaging, they will be in the better review space. But of course we do have Saber here with the huge V-Lock cannon, which is absolutely crazy and insane. We do have Victory Leo there in the packaging with the two mini cons, Fire and Holly. And we do have the hilt of the blade, the blaster, and of course the whole shield adapter piece, which is pretty cool. And there we have them, and I think they look so cool. I actually do have two copies of this figure, which you might be wondering why I got it, because this figure is absolutely amazing. And if you're wondering how I know that, yes, I already did open one, and it's already out of the packaging, so that's how I know this figure is absolutely amazing. And in this entire video, I'm going to be gushing over this figure so much, so just stay tuned for that in the video. But that's pretty much it for the unboxing. It's boxed up really cool. This is one packaging I highly suggest to keep. I know there's some people out there who really do not care about the box whatsoever, and I can understand that with the mainline packaging. Sometimes they're not the most detailed or interesting artwork, but this one you have to keep, and I will keep. That's pretty much it for the box, but he does also come with a really cool poster. I'm just going to zoom out so you can see it. So, of course, I have two, but here's one of them. But, apologies for the glare, I'm going to move it around to avoid it. But, of course, up top, we do have Deathsaurus smiling with those really cool eyes and those teeth. And we do have Star Saber and Victory Leo, and, of course, we have the Legacy logo there, and Holly and Fire. And some writing on this side, and Takara Tomy. And on the back, it is just nothing. I'm actually really glad with this poster. They did it in cardboard. It is solid. They could have easily just printed this in like paper or something cheap, but it's actually solid, so it will keep a solid, form. It won't be bendy or rip easily. So if you wanted to, of course, if you have two like me, you could, put this in a poster sleeve and hang it up on your wall, and I think that's probably what I'm going to do. I probably will put one of these up in the display room, which will be super cool. But that is pretty much it for the unboxing portion of this video. Really cool box. Again, I will try and take some pictures of that inner sleeve artwork. I really wanted to try and show you on the box itself, but it just really was not staying without, of course, taping it, but I really didn't want to do that. It could ruin the box, so I'm not going to do that. But I will take some pictures, and if you want to see those, they will be in the intro of this video. So let's now move on to the review portion of this video. So, of course, we're going to go back into the traditional review space with the really good lighting and, of course, a really nice white background. So let's go there and do that. Here we have Victory Saber in his V-Star Jet mode. Let's start off by taking a look at the details, starting at the very front with the cockpit and nose cone section. Of course, some really nice red and white, some really nice transparent blue plastic for the whole cockpit section there, looking very cool. And of course, some yellow and black there as well. If you actually look close enough, there is actually the Brain of Courage, or the Brainmaster, piloting the V-Star Jet mode, which I actually think looks pretty cool from the outside and a really cool feature. It actually kind of nods back, or of course makes you think of the Titan return line. In that line, of course, the main gimmick was you could get the Headmaster or Titan Master, and you could store it inside the figure's alt mode and have him pilot it, which I always thought was the coolest feature, and I'm really glad you can do that here. Of course, I'll take a look in greater detail at that figure a little bit later in the video. And of course, the cannons at the front are done in some really nice Gimmo Gray Silver, which looks pretty cool. These are Blaster Piece compatible and can move up and down, which is a pretty cool feature. This other turret section is actually the head or helmet section of Victory Saber, which is pretty creative. You can actually transform it into a turret, which I thought was pretty cool in my opinion. Done in some really nice black, silver, and red, and some yellow at that whole crest or top section, which I think is pretty cool. Actually kind of recreates that same yellow at the nose cone, which is pretty cool there. So those two cannons there are Blaster Piece compatible. They do fit. I have tried it, but unfortunately on my copy, I've tried with some small ones even. I guess it could just be my copy, or it's everyone's, not really sure. But these pieces here are a little bit too loose, so whenever I attach them, these pieces typically just kind of sag down, so I typically will not place them there. Of course, this could just be my copy, or it could be everyone's, not really sure. But articulation or movement for the cannons, they can move, of course, forward and back and out and in, which is pretty nice. Moving on to the rest of the figure and the details, of course, some really nice white and blue, lots of really nice sculpt work. There's some circuitry and paneling detailing, lots of layers, some really cool vents. I really do like the wings, some really nice glossy blue, and really classic Autobot symbol on this bottom wing. Of course, all the detail from this side is repeated on the other side. And of course, this top fin is pretty much the same design. As you can see, that blue outlining, really, of course, just the size difference, and there's no Autobot symbol. If you do flip to the back, there's a really cool, huge booster here, which is Blaster Piece compatible. It's done in this really nice gunmetal gray. So, of course, in this combined jet mode, you can attach Blaster Pieces, but they will bump into the swing. So, of course, if you separate this, you'll be able to put some more bigger Blaster Pieces there. There'll be some more room, which I'll show, of course, once I separate Victory Leo from this jet, just to show you the options. And of course, detail-wise for the rest of the jets, we have Victory Leo with huge cannons in the back, done with some white and red. Overall looking very cool, very kind of shiny and glossy. I actually really do like that look. And the wings look very cool, lots of spikes. There's this whole kind of layers there or booster section. And I kind of would have liked maybe if there was some blue from this jet just to kind of have a little bit more cohesive. There's no blue on the wings whatsoever. That is just my opinion. And maybe at the very least, I would have liked maybe if this red had stretched all the way to the beginning of the wing, because just on the ends, I think it looks a little bit weird, but that is just my opinion. Let's now get down to, of course, the problems. So there is a few, I guess, complaints or problems people have had. The first being, which really doesn't personally bother me, but I do want to let people know, just in case they don't have this figure yet and they're interested. On the bottom of the guns, this is most people's main problem, is there is waffling or hollowness, on the inside or bottom of the guns, which personally does not bother me. Yes, I would have preferred them to be filled in and not hollow, of course, but it doesn't bother me. It really doesn't, I would say, make a difference of how I feel about this figure. It wouldn't change me buying it or not buying it. I just want to let you know that's there. Of course, I think there probably will be like a third-party upgrade kits or add-on kits to fill that in. Maybe they'll make their own blasters. They'll make a completely different mold, or they'll just 3D print this one but fill it in and just paint it the same way. I really don't know. As of this recording, is there one out that I know of? No. I'm not really that big on third-party upgrade kits. I've never gotten one, but I think there probably will be. My problem with this, that actually does bother me, I typically am not bothered by this, but on the side, as you notice probably, is there is a lot of ports and holes on these side pieces. This is actually the inside of the leg, so in the robot mode, this doesn't bother me, but in this mode specifically, it does. So there is a lot of screw holes, and it would have been nice maybe if they had filled these in, so, with Haslab Unicron, I don't have that, but I do know he came with actually some screw ports or screw fillers. If you don't know what those are, it's just a little piece of plastic, of course, matching the color of the plastic that it goes near, so it would be white, and you just fit in the little circle and just fill in that hole. And that would have been nice maybe if they put like 5 or 6 with this. Again, yes, this is really kind of a specific problem to this mode. I really don't see it that much in the robot mode, because these are, of course, I'm pretty sure the inside of the leg, so it doesn't bother me. But I think it would have been nice maybe if they had put like a few just to fill them in. Because of course some of these are ports for weapon storage, so that's fine, that doesn't bother me. But there is quite a few screw ports and holes here and there, which do not look the greatest. It kind of does ruin the look on the sides, but again, a very minor complaint. And if you're wondering why did I start with some of the accessories already on, because if you've watched any of my previous reviews, I typically do start with the accessories off the figure, because I just, of course, just want to show you the base figure. Well, I start with some of them on, because some of the accessories, most of these accessories here, are really a part of the jets. If I didn't have these on, it really wouldn't be the V-Star jet, because one of the accessories is literally the nose cone. If I didn't have this on, it would look pretty odd, and there's the shield, that's pretty much a part of it, so I did leave some off to the side, but that was because, of course, I just wanted to show you the base V-Star jet and not cover up the detail, because if I started with the V-Lock cannon, that would cover up a ton, so I'm going to do that after I show you all the details of just the base V-Star jet, if you were wondering why I started without them, and of course, some with. But that is pretty much it for details. Let's now get down to, of course, the accessories and, of course, the features. So the first feature is he actually does have some landing gear. So if you do flip to the bottom here, you can actually pop these little pieces out, just flip them out like this, and that's actually a pretty nice feature. Of course, there's no rolling wheels or anything, which that doesn't bother me, but it actually does help him be propped up a little bit more, and actually adds some height, so it makes it a little bit more noticeable, a little bit bigger, and I think actually looks pretty cool. So that's the first feature. Another feature, of course, or accessory, is his blaster pieces. So he does come with the same set of 6 that came with Jetfire, Shatterglass Jetfire, Omega Supreme. So if you're interested, Shatterglass Jetfire came with some purple ones, or kind of blue. And Siege Jetfire came with some orange or red, same as Omega Supreme. And yeah, they're cool. I do like this color, this really kind of like glowing kind of energon green color. I think it looks pretty cool, but to be fair, this is a Haslab. This was one of the tier unlocks. It came with the V-Lock cannon. I think this should have been a custom blaster piece. I'm saying this for Victory Saber. I'm saying this for Deathsaurus, because Deathsaurus comes with the same set of blaster pieces. I think they're done in like a purple now, just to match the living metal cannon, living death metal cannon, whatever you want to call it. I think both of them should have been custom. I think it should have been a really cool kind of custom explosion that you could have added to the V-Log cannon. And yes, you can add these to the V-Log cannon. It looks pretty cool, but I think they could have taken it to the next level and done a pretty cool custom explosion just to make it exclusive to this set. That is just my opinion. But again, a minor one. It's just blaster pieces. It could have been worse. You know, it could have been a stress mark. It could have been something broken. So it's a very minor nitpick overall. But of course, feature-wise, of course, you can split these up. It's 2 sets of 3. You can attach them into one big blaster piece, or you can split them into 3 different pieces. So we can attach them to these front cannons. Of course, you can angle these up, or you can have them just pointing straight forward. Of course, there's those back too. There's lots of options. As I mentioned before, there's those boosters back there, so you can store them in a lot of different ways. But what I really like doing is storing both big, combinations, both big stacks of the 3 blaster pieces on these back cannons. I think that's probably my preferred look. I think that looks, in my opinion, the best. I think that looks pretty cool, in my opinion. Overall, very, very nice. And of course, you can have all these angled up. So he is definitely decked out. He is definitely weaponed up. And I haven't even put on the V-Log cannon yet. So he is ready for battle. But that is pretty much it for this accessory and feature. Let's put these off to the side for now. I'll bring them back later, of course, to show, how they look with the other modes. Just to show you. And of course, we can now get into the other feature. So let's actually move on to the Brain Masters quickly. So I'm just going to pop him out of his little cockpit section. And I would be very, very careful with this, because this is super tiny. And if you didn't know, this actually forms the head of one of the figures, Saber, which is actually this whole front section here. He has his own robot mode, so if you lose this, he will not have a head, he will not have a face, so do not lose this. So I'm just going to try and actually move the V-Star jet off to the side quickly for now, as much as I can, just of course solely focus on the Brain Master. I'm going to try and stand him up, and a little bit, let's take a look at the details. So this is a tiny little thing. Hopefully, of course, it's focused. I'm going to try and get the light to die down a bit. There we go. So detail-wise, pretty plain, mostly done in white on the arms. There's some blue for the face, and what's actually really cool is they recreated, if you've seen the figure and the pictures, on Victory Leo and Victory Saber, they have some little kind of gold highlights on their chest, and they recreated that here. Hopefully you can see it. It's very, very tiny. I'm pointing to it right there. So it's pretty cool how they recreated that. Just a little detail that matches for all 3 of them. There we go. And of course for the feet and legs, mostly done in whites, blue, and red. And it's kind of classic like a Titan Master. If you have a Titan Master, always on the back of a Titan Master. And this one, the head or face will be on their back. So that's pretty funny. That's always been a really funny thing that they do. The transformation, of course, for a Titan Master and this are completely different. It does not work the same. I'll show you, of course, whenever I transform Saber into his robot mode. But that is a pretty cute, small little figure. So, of course, articulation-wise, there's a ball joint at the arms, so it can rotate all the way around. No articulation in the head. Of course, the legs can move out. That is really due to, of course, for him to sit. And that is pretty much it. Yes, that is very, very limited, but this thing is absolutely tiny. So I'm going to try and stand him up. But I do want to say something while I'm trying to do so. Hopefully this doesn't take a while. But, something that has come to mind when getting this figure is, I actually recently did review Point Blank and a Peacemaker from Legacy Wave 3. So, in that video, I did complain that Peacemaker did not have very good articulation, and that really just this figure really just highlights the fact, because this has better articulation than that figure. And that little Target Master, he's probably Micro Master core class size. He's close to the size of Rumble, I would say. And he has better articulation, and he is, so small. That Peacemaker figure is like 4 times the size of him, and he has better articulation. And keep in mind, this is another thing that's actually, really helps this, makes me like this figure more, is that the articulation and the arms and the legs, that is not due to transformation. When I show you later, they could have had this a completely stock figure. They could have had this have no articulation in the arms, no articulation in the legs. For transformation, you just have him stand up and there's a hinge on his back. They could have just had it as that. But they added that so you could have him sit in that seat with an actual pose. So actually, I'm really glad they did that. They could have easily had just a stock little piece or a little brick, which I'm saying that because that's how Peacemaker is. He's a stock piece. He does not have articulation in the arms or the legs. He does have a hinge in the legs, but that's due to transformation. So I just had to mention that. I'm done with my complaints or rants. Hopefully I didn't get too negative, but I just wanted to let you know it's kind of saying something that something this big has more articulation than something 4 times the size of it. So that's a bit odd. But let's now get down to a size comparison just to show you how tiny this thing is. I can't zoom in the camera more, because if I do, if you were interested, it'll kind of blow up him, because he's a very small little thing with quite a bit of white. So I'm going to try and keep it as clear as possible. I think it's pretty well zoomed in for you to see. So here he is with the Titan Master, which really I would say probably was before this the smallest Hasbro Transformer they've made. Here he is with the Micro Master from Siege, and last but not least, here he is with a core class from Legacy. I know it's a bit off to the side, but of course I will take a picture for the intro where it's more centered so you can see better. So if you want a better, more centered picture or look, watch my intro of before, of course, I do the review. But here is that size comparison, as you can see, really smallest to biggest of course, the smaller scaled figures, just to show you how tiny this thing is. It's kind of funny and adorable. That's pretty much it for this size comparison. So I'm just going to take all of these off to the side for now. Just put them all off. And then we can actually zoom out and bring the V-Star jets back on. And we can actually move on to the last few accessories and how they store. So I'm actually going to put the Brainmaster back in. You just gotta sit him like that. And I do apologize in advance. He can sometimes be a pain to get level and actually fits. There we go. Okay, sometimes it kind of gets caught on the plastic or the little, cockpit, so that's good. It came in there smooth, so just want to let you know. So let's now move on to the last 2 accessories. So the first being is the massive V-Lock cannon. So this is really the reason why I started with this off to the side, because it would cover up a lot of detail, but this looks super cool. I think it could have a few more paint apps. Of course, this could be 100% accurate to the show. I really haven't seen the Transformers Victory show whatsoever. I've seen a few scenes of Deathsaurus versus Victory Saber just to see it, because I recently backed Deathsaurus, just wanted to see what it looked like, but I've barely seen the show. I don't even think I've seen a full episode, so I'm not sure if this is 100% accurate. If so, I guess that's how it is, but if not, I kind of would have liked maybe if they had some more paint apps on this, some more red, more blue, I don't know, but how this stores is, of course, on either side it's customizable. You do whatever you wish. I'm gonna do it on this side. So on either side there is, of course, several ports and areas, but I'm gonna go by the instructions. By the instructions, there is a port right there, and you're gonna use the same one on the other side. So you're just gonna plug that right into place using the handle, and you just plug it in, and there we go. I do apologize if the white is kind of blasted out or blurry. Again, I did try and, change the lighting for it to look a little bit better. As for the last accessory, which does go in the same area, it's Saber's weapon, which, to be honest, is definitely my least favorite accessory. I don't like it. I do not like this accessory. Design-wise, it looks cool. I think the sculpting is really cool. The barrel, there's some really cool circuitry and mechanical detailing, looking very futuristic, but the color, it's pretty plain. It's pretty boring. But this just plugs right into there. And there we have the fully armed Victory Saber V-Star jet mode. And that is so crazy, so, well armed. He is definitely ready for battle. So I'm going to try and hopefully fit in a quick shuttle comparison. So here he is with another Transformers Victory figure. Here he is with the Transformers Legacy Velocitron Speed of 500 Collection Galaxy Shuttle. So I'm actually amazed. Actually, I was able to fit both of these in the same frame, but here they are, and they look pretty cool next to each other. I just have to say this figure is way better than Galaxy Shuttle in so many ways. I don't know what was happening with the paint apps. I reviewed this figure already, but I just have to say I have to give you guys a warning if you haven't gotten it yet. There is so many paint shipping problems with this figure. That could just be my copy, I don't know, but I'm so glad this problem was not on this figure. I don't know what was happening with that, I really don't. But they look pretty cool, and honestly, I want them to do more Victory show figures. No, I've barely seen the show. I have no idea what references are. You know, I've barely seen. I've seen a few clips at the most, but so far the figures are pretty good. You know, the design of Galaxy Shuttle is good. Just the paint shipping is a huge problem. It's a good figure. Just really bad paint shipping. This is overall a very good figure, and I'm assuming Deathsaurus is going to be good, if not better. So I would really like them to be able to maybe release some more, maybe mainline this time, because all three Victories, Saber, all three Victory show figures they've made so far, or will make, are exclusive. This was a Haslab, that was a Walmart exclusive. The other one's a Haslab, so maybe they could release some mainline ones. That would be kind of nice to see. But they look pretty cool next to each other. So I will do some more comparisons, of course, in his other modes, just because, of course, I really didn't know who to compare him to in this mode. Also, of course, lack of space, because he takes up so much room. But that is pretty much it for the accessories. So let's now get down to the two Micromasters that he includes, which are, of course, Holly and Fire. Here we have Fire and Holly in their robot mode, so let's start off by taking a look at the details. Starting with Holly, overall, of course, exactly the same mold as the previous version. This is, of course, just a straight-up redeco of a Siege Micromaster that came out a while ago, that I will be making a comparison to in just a sec, but detail-wise, overall pretty simple. Some white for the arms, some nice blue for the visor and face, and some silver for the lower part of the face, really the mouth and nose. Of course, same detail repeated on the other arm. There's some black on the forearm, and I actually really do like how they sculpted in the hands and the whole actual arm and elbow, which is pretty cool. The chest overall pretty simple. Of course, there's the giant screw ports or area, which is the same. It was the same way with the original. There's some really nice yellow highlights, pretty simple done in blue. Some nice turquoise at the toes or the feet. If you actually flip to the side, there's the tires on the feet, and there's actually the front of the car on the back, which I think is pretty cool. And we actually do have the light piece of the police car, which is pretty cool to see back there. That is pretty much it detail-wise. Let's now move on to the details of Fire. So, of course, by the name, transforms into a fire truck. Another just straight-up redeco of a previous version of a Siege mold Micromaster, which I will do a comparison to in just a sec. Detail-wise, pretty plain, some nice white for the chest. I actually really do like how they got some turquoise blue for the helmet, the crotch, and hands, and a little bit at the feet. That actually looks pretty cool. If you do flip to the back, we actually do have the firefighter ladder or, crane piece, whatever you want to call it, folded up on the back, which is pretty cool. We actually have the wheels at the shoulders, mostly done in red for the arms, pretty plain and slender. And the legs, pretty plain and white, and I actually really do like how there's the front of the fire truck at the feet. But overall, very, very cool. So let's now get down to articulation. So if you know this mold, or if you have the sets, you know the legs on both these minicons are very famous for just popping off randomly. Sometimes actually the arms too, usually it is the legs though. So I do apologize if during articulation or transformation or anything, if they just randomly pop off, I'm just going to pop them back on and I'll act like it never happens. But let's start with the articulation. So of course, for this little guy, the head can move side to side. I know my hand completely covers it all up because the head is so tiny, but it can move side to side. As for the little arm, it can move out and of course up and down, and of course that is pretty much it. There is no waist rotation. As for the legs, of course they can kick that far forward, very little. Of course if you do any further they will pop off. A little bit that far back. There is a knee bends, and of course a slight swivel at the leg, and of course the foot. And that is pretty much it for articulation. As for fire, I'm just going to stand up Holly. Hopefully it doesn't fall over. There we go. As for fire, the arm can move all the way around. It can move out and in. And the head, there is articulation at the head. It's just very hard to access, of course, because there's this whole plate piece at the top. You can actually move it, and what proves it is the head is actually moving to the side. That probably must have happened during transport or how they packaged it, just kind of just slowly moved to the side. You can move it. I just don't want it to because, of course, I could scratch the paint, and I do not want to do that. There is waist rotation. I'm going to try and maybe do it. It can move. It's just, of course, if I do, the legs will pop off. But there is, of course, you can actually see there is a separation at the waist, so there is waist rotation there. As for the legs, they can kick a little bit further than the previous Holly figure. Can kick that far forward, that far back. Of course, the whole fire truck crane piece is in the way a little bit. There is a knee bend. And that is pretty much it. Pretty limited, but they are Micromasters, so they are quite small in size, but design, I think they look pretty cool. I actually always really like the Micromasters. I know they were very unpopular in the Siege. I don't think they were the greatest hits, and I think that's probably why they stopped them and moved on to the Core Class. I do quite like Core Class as well, but I really wouldn't mind if they brought these back. I think they're pretty fun. Let's now do some mold comparisons. Sorry, I kind of voice started there. So let's have a comparison with the original version of this mold. Here he is with Stakeout and, of course, Red Heat. So let's just kind of get them a little bit closer, just straighten them up a little bit so we can get a better comparison here. And here we have them together. As you can see, of course, mold-wise, they are the exact same thing. And if you're wondering, of course, the availability and where we got these, of course, this is Haslab. This was a mainline Siege 2-pack. It was just a Micromaster kind of pack. Close to the same price as a Core Class, I would say, about $10, $12, really depending where you bought it. But as you can see, mold-wise, they are the exact same thing, really just a deco change. Which pair do I like more? I'm not really sure. Of a singular figure, I think I like the deco of Stakeout more than Holly. That is just my opinion, because I really do like the Cybertronian kind of letters and hieroglyphics on his arms. That actually looks super cool, which is a bit interesting. I think this is more Earth-based. This is more probably Cybertron-based. That kind of just appears that way. That's just my opinion. But they do look pretty cool, in my opinion. Of course, let me know in the comment section down below between the two, which one do you like more. And now for one final comparison, because there is several other versions of this mold, of this pair. We can actually have another group come in. Here he is with, actually I'm going to have to scoot him down a tad bit just to fit everyone in. So here he is with Wheelblaze and Road Police, which is a clever name. And mold-wise, again, same thing as these other four here, just a deco change. In my opinion, definitely these two are my least favorite, just deco-wise. I don't really like the white they used. It's kind of off-putting to me. I actually kind of like this. It's a bit of a dark gray-white tone. This kind of looks a little bit too dirty to me. It looks like it actually fell in mud and it was a mistake or something, or it's the wrong color. It just doesn't look good to me. The yellow, I think it looks okay. Just okay. But they overall do look pretty cool in my opinion. All the same molds, but they do look pretty cool. I'm just going to quickly bring out, just for comparisons, just to show you. So there is two other versions of the fire truck one, in case you were interested, from Siege. Their Micromaster partner was not the Stakeout or Holly mold. It was a completely different mold. But, of course, this partner is. But there is a mold change with these two. These actually have a whole turret or kind of tank thing on their back. But, of course, these other three in the back here have the fire truck. So, kind of interesting how they just slightly tweak the back. And it actually makes a brand new figure, which is pretty cool. And I have to say, the reason why I mention that and I will show those two is because, we recently got a surprise third tier of Death Source revealed, and it was two brand new molded Micromasters, brand new molds. And, it kind of adds further insult to injury of this bunch, these two here. They're both Haslab, they're both the same price, $200 about, after tax and everything. And, there's no new molded pieces, just a straight up redeco. So, It would have been nice maybe if there was like a slightly new molded piece, because, you know, as I showed you just those two, they just changed the back and it turned from a fire truck to a tank. You know, if they just changed a few things, this could have turned into a boat, a plane, something, you know, just added a few pieces, or it could have been a brand new mold. I think that would have been nice. Yes, I know from other reviews, these two characters are on the Transformers Victory show. I'm pretty sure, again, I've never seen it, but that's what I've heard. These two characters, Fire and Holly, are in the show, but it would have been nice maybe if they just didn't, they could have done the character, but just had a modern twist on it, or a modern interpretation, or they could have just not done Fire and Holly. They could have done a completely different character. I would have been fine with that. I know some people probably would have been bothered, but that is just my opinion. But that is pretty much it for the robot mode comparisons. Let's just take these two bunches and put them off to the side for now. I will bring out the original in just a sec, of course, for a vehicle mode comparison. So let's transform these two. Let's start with Holly. I'm going to try and not have the limbs pop off randomly. So what you're going to do is tab the feet together. You can then bring the whole backpack or front of the car and bring that out, so you can actually tab the arms into place, and then you can bring this whole section down like that, and then you're just going to fold the legs up, and this is usually when they just pop off. And yeah, one of them did. One of them popped off, and actually both of them popped off. So you just pop them back on like that, and there we go. And then just have these in place like that. And there we have Holly in his police car alt mode. We'll take a look at the details in just a sec. Let's now transform Fire. So what you're going to do is flip out those panels, and honestly, this isn't of course by the instructions, but I do this anyway because it makes it so much easier. You can actually remove the whole fire truck piece. They say not to, it doesn't say in the instructions, but it actually adds so much more clearance, so I'm just going to remove it because it makes it so much easier. So you tab the legs together, you actually fold these up, and actually folds right into this whole slot section right here. So just fold those up like that, tab them together, the legs together. Occasionally on this copy they don't want to stay like that, and then for the arms, there is a tab on the inside there, and it's going to tab to, of course, the inside of the arm. So just move those up, tab it into place, and maybe the legs will stay, I don't know. And then you're going to get that post, of course. Just plug this back on top, and then you can flip out the whole ladder thing. And this, of course, can hinge up or down, really just depending on how you want it to look. And there we have Fire and Holly in their alt modes, and they overall look pretty cool. Unfortunately, this one really does not want to stay tabbed. I do apologize about that, but they overall do look pretty cool. Just quickly taking a look at the details, some really nice black at the front, the classic police light piece, the red, white, looking pretty cool, the turquoise for the windows, the back there as well. I actually really do like the alt modes. The transformation, of course, is kind of a pain because the limbs just pop off all the time, but they're pretty cute, they're pretty tiny, and they overall do look pretty cool. So, not bad design-wise. They actually does roll pretty well for such a small little thing. As for the fire truck, I do quite like it, minus, of course, in not tabbing into place, but that's a small little problem. Probably if I took some time and just kind of finessed it, or just kind of, you know, worked at it, it probably will stay. It just a little bit of a crack, but of course we do have the ladder for the fire truck, which is pretty nice. It can move up and down. This actually does have hinge as well if you want to put it at a different angle. And of course there's the wheels on the side. I definitely do prefer the wheels on this one. There's the huge ugly pins. I do not like that whatsoever, but it's a small mini cons, so not the end of the world. And this one rolls so-so as well. And that's pretty much it for the alt modes. Let's now get down to one quick MicroMaster mold comparison. So here we have Fire and Holly with, of course, Stakeout and Red Heat. So let me just bring them out, kind of move them over a little bit. And here we have them together. As you can see again, mold-wise, they are the exact same thing, just a deco change. Again, I probably prefer Stakeouts over Holly. These two kind of, and yeah, they're both good. Unfortunately, of course, this one really just, the feet do not want to tab into place, which is funny, because this one, as you can see, tabs perfectly fine. So a bit odd, but overall pretty fun many cons in my opinion. That is pretty much it for the microcapacitors for this video. Of course, I showed the robot, articulation, details, transformation. So let's now go back to, of course, the V-Star jet alt mode. I'm actually going to show you how the stand incorporates into the jet and how it looks and all that stuff like that. And then, of course, we'll finally get down to transformation. So let's go to... So now I'm going to quickly show you how the flight stand can incorporate into the V-Star jet mode. So I would advise to take off the V-Lock cannon and the Star's blaster, just because, of course, you're going to flip this upside down how I do it. Of course, there is multiple ways you can attach the stands. So how I do it is I take off the weapons, of course, that are in the way. I flip this upside down, and I actually attach the adapter piece to the ship or the figure first. Then I attach the stand to that. Of course, there is, again, multiple ways you could do this. You could attach the adapter piece to the stand, then attach it to the figure. I think this is just the easiest way to do it. So, of course, there is a slot right there, and there is a tab right there, and you're going to tab that right into place like that. Make sure that is really good in there. You do not want this falling off the stand, so make sure that's really nice and secure. Of course, there's this huge port, and that's going to, of course, plug into the stand. So you can flip this back around. We can bring out that stand. So this, of course, was one of the tiers, which in my opinion, I really think it should have come with the base figure, not a tier. That is just my opinion. I think it really should have come with the base figure, and I think they could have used the tier for something else, like a different weapon or something else. But for the configuration, you're going to want to need it in this configuration. This slot here, of course, is for the robot mode, which I'll show, of course, how that attaches into the robot mode, of course, once it is actually in the robot mode. So you're going to position the stand like this, and that huge peg is going to plug into that huge port I showed earlier. So you're just going to plug this right into place, and I will adjust the camera after I've attached this. I know the view is going to be terrible of the figure, so just attach it like that, and yes, you cannot see anything, so I'm just going to move the camera up a ton. So there we have the V-Star jet mode fully attached, of course, to the stand, and this looks super cool. Yes, the view is not the greatest. You really can't see anything from the top, but from the side, that actually looks pretty cool. This is really the best view I could get, because literally the top of this shelf is not that far. It's pretty close to touching it, so really this is the best I could do with, you know, of course, the best lighting I can have. I could have filmed this somewhere else, but the lighting would have been as good, so I did this. I think it actually looks pretty cool. Of course, you can attach the blaster pieces. I'll bring the V-Lock cannon out in just a second, but this looks so cool. You can still see the little brain master in there, a little brain of courage in there, which is pretty fun. Of course, you can angle the cannons up, position all these stuff, get all the cannons out, get ready for battle. And yeah, this looks absolutely insane. And actually, yeah, when the stand was first unlocked, I was really worried how strong the stand was going to be. And I've actually had, in case you were wondering, I have 2 copies of Victory's Saber, and I have one of them. I'm going to keep it permanently in the combined robot mode, Victory's Saber mode. I have that attached to the stand. I've had it that way for so long. It's never come attached, undone, or like, you know, disconnected or anything, whatever you want to say. I've had it connected for like a week now or longer, and it stayed in the same position. It's actually not touching the ground. It's really kind of solely at you know, using the weights and support of the stands, not really touching the ground. It's kind of floating, which it looks really cool that way. So I would think it would be okay to have your figure attached to the stand in the robot mode. I would say for this mode, do not leave it this way. Yes, the stand is very secure. It's very thick. The plastic, yes, this is transparent blue plastic. But it's very thick. I still would not suggest to leave it this way, like, you know, alone when you're not there. You know, I'm here, so if it falls, I can catch it, but I really don't trust, I would say, that much for it to not fall over. That's just my opinion. I'm just kind of being, I would say, extra cautious, because it's a very rare thing. But, again, just my opinion. It seems secure, but it is, of course, a little wobbly. That's why I'm saying that. But let's attach the other weapons. Let's have the full, of course, weaponed look. So let's attach the V-Lock cannon on the other side. So it's going to plug that right into place. And then, of course, attach the Saber's blaster on this side. So there we have the full weaponized look. Again, of course, I could attach the blaster pieces if I wanted to, but it might get a little too crazy. But there we go. That looks absolutely insane. So that's pretty much it for the stand for this mode. Of course, I will bring it back in the combined mode. That's really the two main uses for this stand, the two main modes you can use it for. So let's now get down to transformation into the separate jet modes. So I'm just going to tell you what we're transforming it into right now. So, of course, this is the combined jet mode, but actually, Saber has his own jet mode, Victory Leo has his own jet mode, so there's actually two more sort of vehicle modes that we can show before, of course, we get into the robot. So let's quickly, of course, go transform those figures into their separate jet modes. Let's now get down to transformation. So if you didn't already know, there's actually several other jet modes that pretty much separate from this combined V-Star jet. So we're actually going to solely focus on Victory Leo right now. So what you're going to want to do is actually kind of move it to the side. You can lift up this entire section. You can actually remove the shield right here, and there is a port and a peg, and that's how that was tapped into place. And make sure when you're having in the combined jet, you have this piece here attached to the lower end of the shield. And of course, when you want it as the shield accessory, you want to put this piece right where that port is. And of course, they'll cover that a little bit later when it's in the robot mode. And how this was tapped into places, there is two tabs on this piece, and there is, of course, two clips on Victory Leo right there, and that was how that was tapped into place. And how to separate Victory Leo from this main body portion is there is slots, of course, on each side on Victory Leo, and there is tabs on these two big pieces on the side. And again, I do apologize, as I mentioned before, if the lighting is bad, if the white is kind of blasted out, I do apologize. I really tried to adjust it as best I could, without it being too dark, and of course without it being too bright. So just kind of release, just kind of push it out a little bit, and of course it will loosen up, and then Victory Leo should separate exactly like that. As for, of course, the separate jet mode, this is one piece, but this is actually a separate jet mode, so you're just going to push this piece down like that, and this is actually an entirely separate jet mode. Yes, it's pretty much the exact same thing as you saw before, just, of course, Victory Leo removed. I will quickly cover the details of this in just a second. I'm not going to spend that much time, because a lot of the details, of course, pretty much the entire front half has stayed the same, but I'm going to put this off to the side for now, and let's now cover Victory Leo, because there's actually quite a bit of new bits that we can see now, because pretty much this entire front portion was completely covered in the combined mode. So what you're going to want to do is actually split this in half, and my method is you just get your finger and just push this piece out. So just do it like that, and push that out, flip that forward, do the same thing on the other side, so just flip this forward, and then you, of course, re-tab the halves together. So there is a slot and tab, and a tab and slot, and just tab both halves together, and there we have the front all done. It's probably supposed to resemble like a cockpit or command center. You can use your imagination. And now for some added clearance, just move these pieces up like that, and then you're going to flip this panel down. Just flip it down like that, and then of course you can re-tab all these pieces into place. So just tab them down like that, push the whole lion head or robot mode head down back into place, and now for the very last step, you're actually going to incorporate the V-Lock cannon into this mode. So this is not a lot of people's favorite modes from the reviews I've seen. A lot of people don't like it. It's not my favorite mode. I think it's pretty cool looking, in my opinion. Why I'm saying this is because a lot of people think it's a little bit unproportional. There's quite a bit of kibble, and there's, of course, the huge V-Lock cannon that you're going to attach to it. I'm saying this because you can easily, if you want to, not attach the V-Lock cannon. I'm going to, because it's by the instructions, by the book. So how you attach it is there is actually a tab here and a tab there, and you're going to, of course, want to attach it on the top side of the gun, and you're going to make sure this handle piece is folded down. How it was before, of course, is you're just going to use that hinge and place it down like that. So there is a slot, and of course it's going to correspond with those two tabs on the figure itself. So just align those up, tab that into place. That's nice and secure. So there we have the fully finished Victory Leo jet mode. So I'm going to quickly cover the details of this, and of course move back to the other jet mode, the Star Saber jet mode. So detail wise, it's pretty cool. As I mentioned before, it's kind of mixed between people's opinions. I've seen quite a few people's reviews. Some people really don't like it. Some people are kind of mixed like me. I would be probably one of those people that's a little bit in the middle, because yes, there is some kibble on the sides that actually kind of does give away what the next mode's going to be. It's going to be the lion or tiger mode, so it does give it a little bit away. There's a little bit of kibble and hollow gaps and stuff like that, but overall, I think it's pretty cool. There's this huge, massive cannon on the front, done really nice gray and red, and of course, it is Blast with Peace compatible. We have those same two back cannons from before. It is, of course, you should know that the entire pretty much back half is unchanged. The only thing you change is flipping out that panel, but this is, of course, the same kind of wings we saw before in the combined mode, so not much has changed back here, but overall, it's pretty cool. Not my favorite mode, definitely not my least favorite. It's okay, but overall, pretty cool. Not a lot to say. A lot of the details, again, have stayed the same. I really do like the wing design, the spikes, the really cool kind of thruster, blaster. Again, I really wish that this red strip could have went all the way to the beginning of the wing. I think that would have looked really good if it went all the way down the edge of the wing. That would have looked pretty cool, but that's just my opinion. And back here, overall, pretty plain and simple, and very, very nice. So let's get one quick comparison. I'm not going to do that many comparisons with these two jet modes because there's really not a lot to compare to. These are really kind of the bonus extra modes, but I promise I will do a lot more comparisons with the main modes, like the robot mode for Victory Leo, his lion mode, same for, of course, Saber, his robot mode and ship mode. I will do a lot more comparisons there, but let's quickly do one. I'm actually going to compare him to a figure I just got recently. I thought I would compare him to Minerva. I actually got him, I got her quite recently, so of course review is coming very soon. I'm really glad I was able to get her, because, oh my gosh, such a pain to find her, but they do look pretty cool next to each other, so a lot of people really want to know what are the sizes of these figures, you know, class-wise. I'd say this is close to, I would say, a Voyager class, or maybe small leader, like, Earthrise Optimus Prime. Pretty much Earthrise Optimus Prime is classified as a leader, but size-wise, he's pretty much a Voyager, so this figure is pretty much close to a Voyager size figure. I'll probably bring out some modern-day Voyagers when he's in his robot mode just to show you, but here, as you can see, size-wise, he's pretty big. He is a very big jet mode, and of course, Minerva is a deluxe, just in case you were wondering, but they overall look very cool next to each other. That is pretty much it for this comparison, so let's quickly go back to the other jet mode, because not a lot has changed, so there's really not a lot to say. So I'm going to bring this jet mode down here, and quickly take a look at the details. So what you can do, of course, there's actually a few, I guess, new added features or playability features that they've added, or you can do now. It's a little bit hard to explain, so if you do flip to the back, if you watched my first portion of this video, some people kind of skip around with videos, but if you did, this entire back portion, of course, was filled or kind of covered with Victory Leo because he was attached. It was the full combined jet mode. But now that he is detached, there's actually quite a bit of really nice engine detail that's visible now. These whole really cool thrusters, and a new added playability factor is you can actually attach the blaster pieces, because before you could attach them, but they would, of course, bump into the wings, the giant wings in the back. So it was a little bit limited. You really couldn't have a really cool kind of blasting off effect if you wanted to do that. But now you can, which is a really cool feature that they kind of included for this mode. So you can attach these huge stacks, which these are included, I showed before. And there's quite a few ports. I'm going to put them on these outer top two, and you can have them blasting off into battle, which I think looks pretty cool. And that's really the only new feature, of course. The same feature as before with the Brain of Courage. He is still stored inside there. The entire front half, design-wise, has stayed the same. I think it's very impressive. I really do like all the layers, the wings in the back, the nice Autobot symbol there looks super cool with the big thrusters or lasers. Same complaints as before. I kind of wish they could have filled in some of these screw holes, but nothing you can really do. Of course, the front two turrets look pretty cool, nice gunmetal gray, same motion and articulation there. Really the only thing that's changed, of course, is the entire back half, but overall, a pretty cool looking jet mode between, of course, the two jets, the combined in this one. I would much rather displaying it in the combined one. That's just my opinion, because this seems a little bit empty to me. It seems like this shouldn't be that way, but that's just my opinion. Maybe I'm just used to the other mode, but that is pretty much it for this mode. I really didn't want to spend that much time on it because a lot of the details of this one, again, have stayed pretty much completely the exact same. Just, of course, the new added space, you can actually attach some blaster pieces now, which is really nice. I'm really glad you could do that. But let's quickly do a comparison, just to show you how big this jet mode is, and I will bring out Victory Leo in just a sec, just to, of course, show you the size difference between the two. But again, here he is with Minerva. Overall, it's a pretty big jet mode, but really this just gives you a good grasp of how big the combined jet mode is, because I did compare the combined jet mode with a leader, Galaxy Shuttle, and, you know, that's a pretty big figure. It's a pretty good size leader, and this is a deluxe, and a pretty average deluxe at that, and, you know, this is only part of the jet mode. This is the non-combined version, so you can really tell this is a very big figure, a very big, jet mode, and they overall do look pretty cool. Like, sure, they actually do match color scheme wise, and I really wasn't doing that intentionally. I just thought to compare it to a new modern day figure to show, but they overall do look pretty cool next to each other. Again, as I said, I will do much more comparisons when they're in their more popular modes, because these are kind of side modes, and of course this one is, I guess, sort of an extra sort of half mode, because of course the entire front half we've seen before, so I really didn't think I needed to do that many comparisons. But whenever it's in the full combined robot mode and the other robot modes, I will do a lot of comparisons just to show you the size, just for fun. It'll be really, really cool, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But that's pretty much it for these two modes now. Let's now get down to transformations. So just to give you kind of an overview, I'm going to actually bring out Victory Leo, just to bring them all out once. So I'm actually going to transform Victory Leo into his lion mode. I'm going to transform Saber into his jet mode, and this entire back portion I'm going to transform into the whole base kind of cannon tower mode. So let's actually start with Victory Leo. So I'm going to put Saber and, of course, the base off to the side for now, just to get some extra room. So what you're going to want to do is actually remove the entire V-Lock cannon just like that, and you can put that off to the side for now. And what you're going to want to do is actually go to the front. You can actually flip the head down like that on that hinge. You can then bring these tusks down, and you can also open up the mouth like that. And that will just tab right into place. You can rotate these cannons around like that. You can also flip this entire wing piece up like that as well. And then you can bring these arms down like this. And as for the last step, you're just going to rotate this entire piece. Then you can unravel the leg like that, bring that down. Do the same thing on the other side, just rotate this whole portion down, just like that. And there we go. And of course, I will cover the details in just a sec. I'm just going to do all the transformation for these modes, and then of course kind of go back to them after. So there we have Victory Leo in his lion mode. Pretty simple transformation. We'll get back to that in just a second. So I'm just going to put the V-Lock cannon next to him. Let's now move on to the Saber's separate jet mode, and of course the base mode. So what you're going to do is remove this entire top head piece like that, which is a little bit stuck. There we go. We can keep that in the same mode, or cannon mode, or turret, whatever you want to call. Just put that out to the side for now. Then what you're going to do is lift up this entire piece back here like that. And how that was tabbed is there is posts on the inside and ports on this piece right here, and then you're going to press this little button, and while you do that, make sure you open up these pieces on the bottom here. You're going to push that and just lift this out. It's a little bit finicky, sometimes it's a little bit stuck. There we go, just lift it out. And how that mechanism works is when you push that button, you can see that is moving, so that really just helps lock into place. So you just push that out, and there you go. And then we're just going to put this piece off to the side again. We're actually going to focus on Saber's jet mode. So let's just move that off to the side, just to get some extra space. And what you're going to want to do for the jet mode, very, very simple. Just flip these panels out, the wings, and then flip these wing pieces up, like that. Make sure these red ones are sticking up and the little white ones are sticking out. And there we have Saber's jet mode. A very simple transformation, as you can see. We'll take a look at the details in just a sec. I just want to now finish the base mode, and then of course we can go back and take a look at all the details of the modes. What you're going to want to do is actually separate this entire top portion from the leg. So it's tabbed in actually several different ways. So it's tabbed into this piece here and also into this piece here. So you're going to have to separate it in several different ways. So just untab it, but definitely take your time. You do not want to snap off any tabs or cause any stress marks or anything like that. I'm actually going to raise the camera up just to make sure you can see what I'm doing. You're going to rotate this back just like that, and this whole arm stays in the exact same configuration. You just rotate it up like that. Then you can do the exact same thing on the other side. So just separate this like that, and then separate it from that other tab there. Rotate that back just like that, and then you can actually you can open up that panel, unravel the leg, close it up, and then there is of course a tab and a whole slot there, and that's going to tab right into place like that. Make sure this is nice and secure and sturdy, and if they haven't already, make sure the wing pieces are folded down. And then you can get this whole hip skirt, fold that down as well, and repeat the same process on your side. So unravel the leg, tab that into place, tab this back up like that, fold the wing piece down, and here comes the challenging hard parts. So of course, make sure, this is by the instructions, this is really just a little support back here. I'm assuming this is how it shows in the instructions. You just put this little piece like that just to help it support up, and it typically does move. But what the challenging part is, which I think most people know if they have this figure, is you actually have to attach this shield piece now. So I'm going to bring that out and show you. So for this mode, you're going to want to get this piece, and of course there is a post and a port, and you're just going to plug that right into place. And how this tabs into place, it becomes sort of like the front of the base, or like the tower, whatever you want to call it. There's 2 tabs there, and 2 slots here, and it's supposed to tab into place, and of course many people's question and many people's problems is it does not stay tabbed in. So I'm going to be brutally honest, it actually does sometimes work. I've transformed it into this mode, I would say 3 or 4 times now. It typically does stay. Of course, I wouldn't say it's the most secure connection of all time, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, because I actually watched several people's reviews, and it would not stay whatsoever. On my copy, it does stay, but it does take quite a bit of work. So I'm not going to show on cam. I really was trying to. This is actually the second time I've recorded this, so... And the first time I tried to do on cam, it took a long time to actually get into place, and I really don't think you want to watch that. So I'm just going to attach this off cam, and it's a really easy process. Of course, by saying it's actually doing it is a pain. Again, there's slots on the shield, and there's tabs there, and it's just really hard to align all of them and it to actually stay. Then, of course, that is the complete base mode. So we'll get back to this a little bit later. Let's go take a look at the details, of course, of Victory, Leo, and of course Saber's jet modes. So let's get right into that. So let's start with Saber. Overall, very cool. So pretty much all that has changed. Again, the entire front half of this jet has pretty much stayed the same, but of course we actually do have some really nice added detail back here. We have the wings, of course, they're now folded up because they used to be, of course, pointed up. Now they're nice and spread out, and I actually really like this jet mode. This actually looks super cool. Apologies. It's kind of small. I would say this figure is roughly deluxe size, and it actually looks really cool. So detail-wise, of course, starting at the very front, we have the really nice yellow and black, and red in the background, some really nice white, some transparent blue plastic for the whole windscreen, and of course we can see the Brain of Courage in there. He's still piloting that ship, which is pretty cool. We have 2 auto symbols, one on each side with a really nice white. You can actually see this is supposed to be a hinge, but I think they probably sculpted it to look like a missile, which is pretty creative. That might just be a coincidence that it looks like a missile, I don't know, but I think it actually looks super cool. We have this really nice gold detail on the back, which looks super cool in my opinion. Of course, this will be very important later for the chest of the combined mode. We have these really cool huge thrusters in the back, which looks really nice, and overall very cool. And that's pretty much it detail-wise. Again, I would say roughly deluxe class size, just for a quick size comparison if you're interested. I'll do more comparisons again in the main modes, but for a deluxe size comparison, here he is with Minerva, and I would say this is pretty spot on to a deluxe size figure, and they overall look very cool next to each other. And as for weapon storage, he does come with a blaster, which I do consider it to be a little bit oversized. So just let me grab that. So here is his blaster, which this is a bit oversized for this mode and his robot mode. So there is, of course, a port on the top, and there's the post, and you can just store this like here, like that. There is actually some MechType ports on the side, which those are actually for the arms and the robot mode. So there is the storage, not the greatest, and I do consider the weapon very oversized. And this is also definitely my least favorite accessory, because paint-wise, it's so boring. It's just gray. But design-wise, I do have to give it to him. Don't get me wrong, the design of the weapon actually looks super cool. There's some really nice scope work, of course, some really cool like mechanical detailing. Looks definitely very futuristic, and it works, but the color is so boring. It would have been really cool if it was done like in blue and white. Maybe they could use some of that gold for like the tip of the barrel. That would look super cool, but yeah, color-wise, it does not work whatsoever. But that's pretty much it for Saber. So let's now move on to, of course, Victory Leo in his Lion mode. So, of course, again, you can store the V-Lock cannon on top of him. Again, in this mode, you don't have to. I'll show how you can do that in just a second, but detail-wise, I'm thoroughly impressed. This is actually a really good mode, and again, people also don't like this one. A lot of reviews say just Victory Leo as the figure, and just in general, all modes, they just don't like. I actually really do like this mode. The whole head looks really nice blue for the eyes. I actually really like the huge tusks sticking out of the mane. Of course, there's some really nice white for the teeth, and there's some yellow for the tongue. So these pieces here are supposed to stick out, but they always get compressed. You're supposed to push them out to, of course, have the mane a little bit more thick, have more dimension and angles, but they always get compressed. It's a bit annoying in my opinion, but not the biggest complaint. Of course, he has his front paws there, which overall look pretty cool. And of course, I will admit, not a big fan of seeing the hands. So by the transformation, of course, they kind of fold up or rotate, so the hand is right there. And at certain angles, you can obviously tell that is the hand. So that's not, I would say, the prettiest view or paint there of just the random gray spots. And again, in certain angles, you can see the hand kind of jutting out. So that's a bit of a problem, but not too big of, not big of a problem. I actually really do like the huge wings sticking out of his shoulders, the big spikes there, which looks super cool. And it's actually really nice. You can see the red under there. That actually looks really nice. And of course, moving to the back, overall pretty simple. Of course, we have the entire hind leg there, which looks pretty cool in design, and in my opinion. Pretty much the paw design is a little bit different in sculpt, but overall pretty cool. And another problem I've heard quite a bit is the tail. A lot of people are assuming this is supposed to be the tail, and yeah, this is not a good tail. This is a pretty crappy one, indeed. And I would like to say, oh, I know how to do a better one. Like there's a better. I don't really have an idea of how they could do a better one. Of course, in saying so, yes, they could have done a better tail, but it could have compromised the other modes. It could have made this mode worse in some other area. There could have been more kibble. It could have, messed up the robot mode or the ship mode. So, as it is, yes, I would have preferred there to be a better tail, but I think if they did, it could have gotten in the way of the other modes. So, that's just my opinion. That's just what I want to say. Maybe there's some reason why they couldn't. But overall, I think everything else looks pretty cool. This is a little bit ugly in my opinion, but it is kind of due to storage of the V-Lock cannon, so it kind of has to be there. But overall, pretty cool. I actually quite like it. So storage for the V-Lock cannon is, of course, completely up to you. I typically don't store it because it's a little bit huge and oversized, but what you do is there's this kind of rail system here. If you can see this whole post, there's these little kind of clips, and of course this entire little clip section here will just attach on, so you kind of just feed it into there, just slowly attach that into place. Can be a bit hard, just get that on there like that, and there we go. Sometimes you do have to, of course, move these weapons. That could be a little bit easier if you do that. And there we go. There we go. And of course, it might take a few tries, like you saw. and it will help, of course, if you move some weapons out of the way. But there is the huge weapon storage for the V-Lock cannon, and I don't really like this look that much. It looks a little bit odd with the two weapons on the side and then the huge V-Lock cannon in the middle. I think that looks a little bit silly. I think it might work a little bit better in his ship mode, but there is all of the weapon storage for him, and I actually quite like this mode. Apologies if I fiddled with the weapon a little bit too much. As I said before, it does take a few tries, but that is pretty much it for this mode, and that is pretty much it, of course, for the all the alt modes. Let's now go, of course, now into the robot modes, pretty much the very most exciting modes of this figure. So let's now get down to transformation. Let's get down to transformation. We're actually going to start with Saber. So what you're going to want to do is actually open up this whole compartment or cockpit section. You can actually take out the Brain of Courage or the Brainmaster and just kind of put it off to the side there. Then you can actually remove the entire nose cone and front of the plane section, which this is actually an accessory, which will come into play a little bit later. So now you're going to want to close the entire cockpit just like that, fold in the wing pieces just like this. We can then flip it forward like that. You can use this entire hinge at the shoulder hinge, the shoulders and the arm up just like that, and there is a tab on this arm piece and there is a slot on the main body, and that's how that was tabbed into place. You then flip out the hand just like that, flip out the hand, which can be a little bit difficult. There we go. Flip out the hands. Then what you can do is bring these little knee pad pieces up, and if they haven't already, flip the feet out. Unfortunately, one of them was kind of loose, so it kind of flipped out on its own. Flip out the foot. Then you can split the legs in half like that. As you can see, there's a tab on this side and a slot on this side on the inside of the leg. You can then fold these wing pieces back just like that. Open up the entire leg like this, and then of course you're just going to hinge this entire assembly up, and then of course reclose it just like that. Then finally flip up the panel, and there we have one leg all done. Do the same thing on the other side. Flip that open, hinge the leg up, and then of course close that compartment again, flip up that panel, and there we have both legs all done. Now for the last step, of course, he does not have a head, so we do have to open up this compartment here, and this reveals actually some really cool creative engineering and design. So of course you're going to flip up this whole kind of helmet section or kind of skeleton or a mold of the head, and then of course that is where the Brain of Courage or the Brainmaster comes into play. So that's why I said earlier in the review you do not want to lose this, because of course this will become the face of Saber. So if you do not have this, he will not have a face. So just have him in a neutral position, just have the arms down just like that, and then you can get this whole face section on his back, and you're going to hinge this up like that. And then it will just kind of slide into place like this, and it will just kind of fit there. And then, so I'm just going to say this now before I get into articulation. And if you're wondering why I did not show articulation for Victory Leo's line mode, it's because I really can't show the articulation of every single mode, because this review will be like 3 hours long. I'm really trying to kind of cut some things out that are, I wouldn't say the most necessary, but I will show the articulation of this figure, and of course Victory Leo's robot mode. But getting to my point is, since this is attached there, be very careful moving the head, because I would not advise to rotate this a full 360. I've never tried. Maybe you can, but from reviews I've seen, a lot of people advise not to. So it can move side to side. I would just do that at the very least, because of course there's the little Brain of Courage master in there. But you can now close that up. We can give him his accessories. So by the instructions, you put this little nose cone piece on the shoulder. It becomes kind of like a shield or something, which I think is pretty cool. And then he also includes his blaster from before. Just kind of straighten him up a little bit. He's a little bit uneven. There we go. And then we can grab his blaster from before, and as I mentioned before, not my favorite blaster. The design and the sculpt work is very impressive, but the size one is way oversized. It's way too big for such a small figure. This definitely works better with Victory Leo or, of course, Star Saber, but just the color is very boring as well. It's just gray. It would have been really nice if it was done in like some white and blue and silver, but that's pretty much it for transformation and the accessories. Of course, I'm going to go back to him and take a look at the details. I'm I'm just going to do all the transformations now, and then of course we'll get into the details of every mode. So I'm just going to put him off to the side, and of course now we can transform Victory Leo into his robot mode. So I'm going to actually move the camera down just a tad bit. There we go. And now what you're going to want to do is go to the head, so you can move these little tusk pieces out like that. You can close the mouth, hinge this little panel piece up like that. And if I don't know if I already mentioned this, but this whole panel piece here, a lot of people had quite a bit of problems with this from reviews and pictures and stuff like that. A lot of people had problems with paint chipping wherever the hinge would bend or fold, and a lot of people had problems with it snapping off. I have not had a problem with this panel yet, which is very surprising because I was really expecting there to be at least the paint chipping problem. Again, I haven't experienced it yet. I have 2 copies of this figure, so if you were worried about that and you haven't bought this figure yet, I guess hopefully that reassures you that yours might not be that way. I don't know, maybe it's just a few copies. But now for the next step, you're actually going to fold the entire hand around like that. You can use these wrist joints, of course, to make the hand straight. Do the same thing on the other side, so just flip this forward, use the wrist joints, flip it like that, and pretty much the entire top half is complete. Then what you're going to do is use this entire back leg assembly here, hinge this all the way around, and there is a slot on the foot and a tab on the main joint there, and just tab that into place, rotate this back, do the same thing on the other side, so just tab this into place, and then of course rotate this back. You can split at the legs, flip these panels in like this, and then you can flip the foot out, and then you're going to go to the very back, open these panels up just like this, get your nail in there. Can be a bit challenging. There we go. Open it up. There we go. And there is a tab here, and there is a slot on the inside of the leg, and you're just going to bring that up, kind of unravel it, and then there is a second tab that's going to tab into that same slot we used before. So just align that up. Same thing on the other side, so just tab that in, make sure it's aligned, just like that, and there we have Victory Leo in his robot mode. Transformation is pretty much done. I'm going to zoom out the camera just a tad bit so we can see everything, and he overall looks very, very cool. So typically in the instructions and reviews, typically people display the huge V-Lock cannon with him, so I'm going to put that in his hand for now just to have him fully equipped and ready for battle, just like that. And I think that looks pretty cool in my opinion, and that's pretty much it for Victory Leo. So let's actually move on to the details of the figures. I'm actually going to kind of do the battle station and Saber at the same time, because in the instructions and pictures and stuff like that, typically people will display those together. That's really the main feature that people do. So I'm going to bring out the battle station. I do want to let you know I really wasn't able to have the shield attached, and sometimes it works. As I mentioned before when I was transforming it, sometimes I've actually really gotten it to stay. I guess I might have done that on my other copy, because as I said, I have 2 copies of this Victory Saber Haslab set, and I guess it worked on the other one a little bit better, but I really was not able to get it to tab in. So what I typically do, what a lot of people typically do, because a lot of people really just cannot get this to stay, but a lot of people really just kind of balance it or kind of just lean the shield there, and it pretty much creates the same effect. I'm just going to kind of push this back just a tad bit so you can see everything. There we go. And there we have the fully complete battle station. Of course, the shield is really supposed to be tabbed in, but you can barely tell the difference. But there it is. I think it overall looks very cool, so I'm actually going to take a look at the details of that and Saber kind of simultaneously, because they are, I would say, pretty much a little bit of a part of each other. So let's start actually with Saber. I'm just going to have the battle station in the background, and we'll quickly take a look at that in just a sec. But starting at the very top with that head, some really nice silver for the face, some really nice yellow at that crest section with some blue for the main helmet section, and some dark blue for the visor. Getting down to the arms, I actually really do like how they kind of sculpted the whole form kind of inward just to give a bit of a different angle. Of course, we have the shield on the side, which is the nose cone of the jet. We have some nice white and red and black and yellow there, looking very, very cool. And yes, there is a big, huge kind of post or handle section there. Of course, that does come into play a little bit later when that becomes the hilt of the sword. And for the details of the chest, I actually really do like that nice classic Autobot symbol right in the center. And I really do like on the sides of the chest that it's kind of angled downward into the crotch. That really nice silver. I really do like that. There's some nut and bolt design there as well. And the same arm is the same detail, of course. Getting down to the crotch and the legs, some really nice blue and yellow, some white. And of course we have these really nice knee pads, some gunmetal gray at these hinges, some yellow, and if we flip to the side, pretty plain on the back. There's actually some really nice detail back here. The gold kind of foil. They're not actually stickers, but they do look very shiny, almost like stickers. It looks super cool. With this really nice engine thrusters at the back on the bottom of his feet. That looks really, really nice. And I really do like this figure. I really do like it. And if you're wondering size-wise, I will do some comparisons in just a sec. I would say he's roughly deluxe class size. For a good example, if you have like Cosmos or maybe Cliff Jumper, I would say he's pretty close to that size. Again, I will do some comparisons in just a sec. And overall, I'm very, very impressed with this figure. So I do have some complaints. I don't really like how there's this big kind of plate on his back. Of course, if you do flip back here, it looks pretty cool. He has the wings and the cockpit on his back. It doesn't look ugly from the back of you, but from the front, it's just this red kind of area. And it looks a little bit weird to me that there's this red plate in between his body and his arm. You don't typically see that. So that is not my favorite look, in my opinion. And again, the other problem is the blaster is very oversized, so you can't even have the blaster fully pointed down. You have to have it angled out, because it, of course, is too long. You can't have it fully stretching out. It's longer there, so that's another problem I'm not a really big fan of. This weapon should be, again, definitely detailed better paint-wise, and definitely a different size. But let's now get down to articulation. I'm going to take the weapon off just to get it out of the way. So as I said before, articulation of the head I would be careful with, because the Brain of Courage is in there, so a slight side-to-side movement, no up and down. As for the arm, of course, there is a hinge at the shoulder. I'm just gonna... Oops, the little shield piece popped off. I do apologize about that, but we'll just leave that off to the side for now. So, of course, there's articulation at the shoulder, so there's a hinge up and down. There is a bicep rotation and elbow bend to, I would say, an average 90. There is no wrist rotation, which I think they could have done, but there is a hinge in, which is really due to transformation. And unfortunately, the waist rotation is actually extremely limited due to the wings in the back, and you really can't kind of move them. They're pretty much in a fixed position there, so just really kind of a move side to side. The leg can kick that far forward, which is very, very good. Pretty good back, again, kind of limited due to the wings. There is a knee bend, there is a swivel, full rotation, and the ankle pivot is kind of non-existing. You can sort of move it in and out just a tad bit. I think that could be a little bit better. So articulation, I think, is one problem they definitely could have fixed. But honestly, to be fully honest, I think I would have rather have them fix the weapon, the oversized weapon, than the articulation, because I really don't, I would say, display my figures in any crazy action poses, and you could probably still do some really cool poses with this. So yes, it is limited, but in my personal opinion, I would really rather them fix the weapon than the articulation, because there's still some really cool good angles and details that you can use to create some really cool poses. But that is pretty much it for details and, of course, articulation. So let's now get down to some comparisons. I'm going to re-equip his weapons. Again, I apologize, his little shield piece kind of just shot off to the side. I don't really know what happened there, but let's now bring out some figures. So here he is with Minerva, a deluxe class figure. So he is a little bit small. He's a smaller deluxe class figure. I would say he was close to Cosmos size, or I'd say Cliff Jumper size. I would say, probably just thinking of this example now, probably he's pretty close to Origin Bumblebee size, the saucer one from the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line. If you have that figure, I would say he's pretty close to that size. But there's the deluxe class comparison, and I'm going to be doing some comparisons, of course, for each class size, just to get a good sense of scale. Here he is with another deluxe class. This is actually my first evolution figure, the Selects Magnificus, which is actually on the channel right now. If you want to see that review, make sure you go check that out. And let's move up a size. Here he is with a Legacy Voyager G-Axis. You can see there. And for one last comparison, of course, let's move up the size again. Here he is with the Holiday Optimus Prime, which is, I would say, considered a leader. It's a $55 price point, and it's definitely a leader in my opinion. And you can see they look pretty cool next to each other. And I will do these comparisons again when we move on to Victory Leo. Let's now, of course, get into the base mode. So really the main playability factor with the base mode was you would incorporate with Saber here, and he would kind of pilot or use the base mode as like a turret or kind of a cool tower, kind of, you know, weapon system, whatever you want to call it. So what you're supposed to do is you pretty much leave the shield on him, and you use the weapon, and you plug it onto the side here. Of course, there is a port on the wing, and you use the peg or the handle, and you just plug in there. I'm just going to move the shield off for a sec. So you're supposed to kind of have Saber on the back piloting this huge turret system here, which I think is pretty cool. I'm going to angle that shield down like that, and you can have him back there piloting the weapon, which I think is pretty cool. I'm just going to balance this again, and I think that's pretty cool. I'm going to angle it to the side here so you can see what I'm doing. And I think that looks pretty cool. I think it's a pretty cool playability factor. Detail-wise of the base mode, I'm not going to spend that much time on it because actually a lot of the details from here do carry over into the Star Saber mode. Of course, you combine this mode here and you combine Saber, and of course they form Star Saber, so I'm not going to spend that much time on this because a lot of the details are shared. I think it's overall a pretty good mode. I think it's kind of like the Victory Leo's jet mode. It's just okay. There's some problems here and there. You can obviously tell, of course, these are the legs just kind of spread out or in the splits position just like that, and these are arms. I think they did a pretty good job with the arms. From certain angles you can barely tell what those are supposed to be or what they are. I'd say probably the biggest problem and biggest complaint most people have is the shield is the biggest pain in the butt of this set. So honestly, I would probably like this mode more if it was just a little bit easier to transform into, because all the steps are pretty easy, just the shield is just the biggest pain, and for a Haslab, I don't really think we should have that problem. But that's pretty much it for these two modes. Overall, I really do like the details of Saber, and the base mode is pretty fun. I probably won't transform it that much. I'm not really that big of a base mode kind of person. This is really just kind of a bonus mode. If I'm correct, let me know in the comment section down below if I'm right or wrong. I've never really seen the Transformers Victory show, but from what I've heard, this mode is not in the Transformers Victory show. I think this is just an own kind of created fan mode that Hasbro made, and I'm pretty sure I'm right because, of course, the shield was a tier, so really this would not be a base mode. This would not be a mode in the instructions if we'd never reached the third tier. This would not be included, so I think this is a kind of fan-created mode that was never in the Victory shows. So, to be honest, if they had included it, I really wouldn't have been bothered or anything. But it's pretty fun. It's pretty cool. But that's pretty much it for these two modes. Let's now move on to Victory Leo. So I'm just going to put everything off to the side and, of course, get some room for Victory Leo. Just put everything off to the side for now. And let's bring out Victory Leo. So he is actually a really cool robot, and I don't understand. Actually, quite a few people have problems with this figure, and I don't understand. I actually really do like this mode. So of course you can't equip him with a huge V-Lock cannon. I'm just going to take this off because it does cover up quite a bit of detail, but I will reapply to him in just a sec. But the head sculpt looks super cool. Really nice blue for the eyes and white for the face. I really do like the huge kind of horns or tusks sticking out. That looks super cool, and I really do like how they recreated that same kind of effect from the, of course, the back of the legs on here, because of course this will become the chest of the combined Victory Saber. So that's pretty cool how they recreated that there. Some really nice red, really nice sculpt work. Really like the whites, the black there. The hands done in some really nice gray, and I think they sculpted them pretty well. There's these huge machine guns on the side of his legs, which I think is pretty cool in my opinion. Autobot symbol right in the center, which I think looks really cool as well. And yes, there is a little bit of kibble here and there. We do have the animal legs on the side, which this really doesn't bother me as near as much as it bothered me in the ship mode. The ship mode, it was just kibble. Of course, you could see the back legs and the front legs and a ton of other junk and kibble in that ship mode. This, I actually think it looks kind of cool that there's the hind legs on the robot mode legs. I think it's kind of cool. Of course, you do have the wings on the back, which looks super cool. Lots of really cool angles and spikes. The huge cannons, which if you want, so you can bring these up and have them like that, which I typically actually have them sticking sticking directly straight up. I think that looks the coolest, and this again does lead to another problem people have that I've mentioned before, is the hollowness in the blasters. So if you do have them sticking straight up, it is very, very noticeable that they are hollow. So if that really does bother you, again, you can have them angled like this, so you really can't see that hollowness. It never really bothered me, in my opinion. It really doesn't, but overall, I'm very impressed. It's a really cool looking robot. Between the two, Saber and Victory Leo, let me know which one you like more in the comment section down below. With this, I'm not really sure. I think they're both pretty cool. They both have their pluses and minuses. So let's now get down to some comparisons. I'm just going to move the V-Lock cannon off to the side. So I would say he is roughly leader class size. I'm going to bring out those same comparisons I did with Saber. So first, here he is with a deluxe. So definitely a very big figure if you're wondering size-wise. I would say he's a big Voyager or small leader. But I'm looking very cool next to each other. Then, of course, I recently did get Minerva, so her review is coming very, very soon. Let's move up a size. Let's get a Voyager comparison. Here it is with G-Axis, and I'd say G-Axis is a pretty decent size Voyager for today. So you can see he's still quite a bit bigger, of course, not including the turrets or the blasters sticking up, just, of course, head to head. He is pretty chunky, pretty bulky. And for kind of a downsized comparison, now for another deluxe comparison, Legacy Evolution Magnificus, which they do look pretty cool next to each other. And last but not least, for one more comparison, here he is with the Holiday Optimus Prime. I wanted to do a leader class comparison. This is technically considered a leader, so I'd say he's probably, I would say, a big Voyager or small leader, kind of like Earthrise Optimus Prime. He's considered a leader, but he is pretty much a Voyager. So they overall do look very cool next to each other. That's pretty much it for comparisons. So accessory-wise, of course, he does have the two cannons on his back and the V-Lock cannon, and I've seen people display it in several different ways. You can store it in his hands, or you can store it actually on the back here if you want to, which is really not my favorite thing to do, but you can store it in his hand, which I think, honestly, this probably is the best look for the V-Lock cannon in the robot mode. I think it just looks really, really cool. So you can just plug that into there like that, and I think that looks very, very cool. I actually kind of like it pointed down. That just looks super cool to me. It's kind of cool how it's like almost the same size and height as the figure itself, which is just crazy. So that looks very, very cool. But accessory-wise, that's pretty much it. So let's now get down to articulation of this mode. I'm just going to put the V-Lock cannon off to the side, so the head can move side to side, and if you untab the plate it's on, it can move up and a little bit down. As for the arms, of course, these can move up, and of course it will bump into the wing, so it can move up and down. It can move out and in. There is a bicep swivel and elbow bend way past 90, which is really cool to see. There is a wrist rotation, and of course same articulation for the other side. The wings, slightly a little bit of motion at that hinge there. Of course the cannons can move up and down, which is pretty cool. As for the waist, unfortunately there is no waist rotation, because you, of course, for transmission, you essentially split this entire thing in half. As for the legs, they can move that far out. Unfortunately, the machine gun does kind of block a little bit of motion in the leg. It can kick that far forward on those really, really tight ratchets there, and it can kick that far back to a very good degree. It can also, of course, have a swivel, and there is a tendency of this splitting like that. That is due to transformations. So unfortunately there's another hinge there. If you want to count that as articulation, I really don't. There is a knee bend, and of course there is an ankle pivot to a very good degree. Let me just re-tab this. Unfortunately this kind of came untabbed here. So overall, pretty good articulation, very tight ratchets. That's actually really good to see ratchets in the legs. I would say the only thing that kind of was limited is, of course, unfortunately, no waist rotation, but that's really just due to the nature of the transformation. It splits completely in half, so there's really nothing you can do about that. They would have to change the transformation pretty much completely for that to work, but everything else is pretty good. But that's pretty much it for Victory Leo. So let's now get down to transformation into Star Saber. So, of course, you combine and Saber and the whole base mode and transform it into one combined one. I'm actually going to leave Victory Leo in his robot mode because I kind of want to do a side-by-side Victory Leo and, of course, Star Saber comparison. And then, of course, we'll get into the final mode, the combined mode, which is just such an awesome mode. So let's get into that right now. Let's now get down to transformation into the Star Saber mode. So let's start off with Saber. What you're going to do is actually fold in the hands. You're kind of redo the transformation back into the jet mode. It's just a little bit different. You can do that. You can leave the head right where it is. You can actually flip these panels out like this. You can then fold in the feet like that, which is a very tight hinge. Just fold in those. You can open up the legs and just hinge those down. Just fold them in like this. Just tuck that in there. Close that back up. And you're going to use that knee bend there and hinge it like that. And then just make sure this panel is fully collapsed. Do the exact same thing on the other side. Just open up the leg, fold this down like that, collapse that into place, and then of course just make sure that panel's down. Use that hinge, and then what you're going to do is hinge both of these pieces up into place like this, and there is just little grooves. It's just going to hinge up like that, and there we go. And then there is a tab and a slot and a tab and a slot. Tab those together like this, and then you're going to get both wings, and these will just hinge out like that. And then as for these arms, there's really no set place to tab them in that I have found. You kind of just hinge them down like that. That's pretty much it. You just use that shoulder hinge them down like this, and there we have Saber in his combined mode. Of course, we're going to get back to him in just a sec. Let's go to the base mode and, of course, get him ready for combining to Saber. So what you're going to want to do is actually get to the legs, use those ratchets, hinge them down just like this, and I'm actually going to have to zoom out because this is going to get really big really fast. You can then flip the foot out, flip this other foot out, do the same thing on their side, flip that foot piece out, flip the second one out just like that. So there we have the feet. Just make sure they're fully tabbed into place. There we go. Tab them into place. Just make sure everything is nice and flat and stable. And there we go. Just make it all level for you to work. And there we go. The legs are pretty much done. So let's now go to the top. You can flip these little side skirt pieces down. Just have these little black gray pieces flipped out as well. And you can actually take the head off just like this. And then you're going to flip this whole faceplate down. Flip the whole kind of antenna or horn pieces. And there we have the face, which is really, really cool to see. Now you can have the cannons pointed forward. You're going to use that ratchet, hinge those down, and kind of angle these out. Then you're going to open up this panel, extend the arm, and then my trick to get the hand out, because of course the hand is right here, before closing this panel, I just push the hand out with my finger, because I don't want to pick at it, of course, from this side and cause paint chipping. And then, of course, there is a tab and a slot, and that's just going to tap into place. And there we have one arm all done and complete, which is really cool to see. Let's now do the other. Let's just make sure these panels are open. Do the same thing on the other side. Just open up that panel, extend the arm, push the hand out like that, and close it up just like that. There we have the arms all done. And I'm pretty sure for these top cannons, that's really kind of up to your personal preference. You can have them straight up. You can kind of collapse them if you want to. Really up to your own personal preference. Have this panel down for now because you're going to want to access that button to attach, of course, Saber to the shell. So how you're going to do this is there's those tabs here, and they tab into the slots there, and of course there's that whole locking mechanism. But I really do need to bring up something, because these tabs are really secure with this. They really do work for this mode, but I don't understand is how they do not work whatsoever for the shield, that whole base thing. I don't really get that. So let's now, of course, slide this all into place. You're going to want to push that button and, of course, have it in there. And then it is locked into place. I'm going to try and show you as best I can without, of course, messing anything up. But you just tab those little panels into place. Do the same thing on the other side. So just get that wing out of the way. Tab that into place like that. Then you just fully spread those wings back like that. And this, of course, looks absolutely ridiculous because he has a tiny little head. So this just kind of becomes a helmet. You just slide that over top, and there we have the fully finished combined Star Saber mode. The last step, of course, you just flip this panel up like that to kind of conceal that ugly kind of button, and there we have it, and that looks so cool. So let's now take a look at the details. Hopefully you can see it. It's a little bit, my camera's a little bit low, but I don't want to have to reposition it because it's a little shaky when I do that. But when I get into comparisons, the angle will be a lot better. But this figure looks so cool. So let's now take a look at the details, of course, for the face. Some really nice kind of silver gunmetal gray for the mouth plate. Some really nice blue for the eyes. The crest section and helmet section looks super cool, done in red and yellow. I actually really do like how there's like two separate crest sections. The of course, horns are done in sort of a pliable plastic, kind of a rubberish, I guess. You can have these angled out or straight up to your own personal preference. I kind of like to have them angled out a bit like that. Getting down to the shoulder, I really do like the very simple kind of classic look. It's really just white, red, and blue. It's very simple, but it looks super cool. Two Autobot symbols on both shoulders, of course, one here and one here. Some really nice gray for the forearm section or the elbow section there. Some really nice red and detail, really nice sculpt work. Overall, very simple. Not a ton of paint apps, but it really looks super cool. Really nice gunmetal gray or kind of black for the hands, looking super cool. I really do like kind of the blue that just goes around the trim of the forearm. That looks really nice. Getting down to the shoulder, I love the huge kind of thrusters that just stick out on his chest, which these actually have a ball joint, so you can sort of angle these out if you want to, but they are connected to the feet, so it will look a little bit odd, but I actually think that's super cool. Of course, we have the very shiny, reflective design that we saw earlier on the back of his legs and in the jet mode. That's super cool. We do have the wings on the side, and I actually really do like how these can hinge in, and it pretty much completely covers that gray piece. I would have been nice maybe if they could have covered this section a little bit more, because I think that kind of ugly gray just looks a little bit odd with the other color scheme, but that's a very minor nitpick. Getting down to the crotch, mostly done in red and yellow. I think that looks really nice. And in case you were wondering, these little hip skirt pieces can move up, these front ones and these side ones. And what's actually really nice is these are not due to transmission. These side ones are due to transmission, so they really did not have to have those included. So that's really cool. And of course the legs with those really nice yellow knee pads. And what's so creative and cool is, this is actually, of course, the bottom of the jet. This is actually where the landing gear was from before. I'm not sure how it opens. Yeah, this is where the landing gear was from before. So it's super cool how the entire time in the robot mode, the landing gear was just right here on the knees. That's pretty cool how well they concealed it, because you can barely tell there's anything there. You can barely tell that flips open. So it's super cool. I do like the kind of angled shape of the gunmetal gray on the sides. Kind of looks like armor pieces or like plating on his knees, which is super cool and very futuristic. Some really nice blue, really nice red for the feet. Really cool wing pieces on the back, which you can kind of display these however you wish. You can have them a little bit more collapsed or a little bit more spread out if you want to. I typically have them like this. And detail-wise, that is pretty much it for the front. The back, overall, not bad. There's really not that much hollowness, as you can see. Yeah, there's a few ports and screw holes here and there, but honestly, that's not that bad in my opinion. But as I mentioned before, early in the review with the whole screw hole problem, as you can see, this is the back. But of course, when it's in the jet mode, this is pretty much the very top. So in the robot mode, really, it doesn't bother anyone. But of course, in the combined V-Star jet, it's very noticeable. So I have to mention my point, as I said before, it would have been really nice if they included some of those screw hole fillers, but I guess they just really didn't think it was necessary. But that's pretty much it for details. Let's now get down to the articulation and then, of course, the accessories and features. So the head articulation, kind of the same as Saber, really just a little bit side-to-side motion. Of course, it is kind of harder to move the head as before because, of course, there's the helmet piece, there's Saber's head, and then there's, of course, attached to the Brain of Courage. So it's a little bit tight, a little bit hard to move, so don't force it. It's just a little side-to-side motion, which is okay. It used to bother me more than it does now. I've kind of gotten used to it, but now for, of course, the arms, the cannons, you can move these back and forth if you want to. The antennas can move out and in, so you can display it however you wish. As for the arm, of course, there's ratchet joints all the way around. There is an outward motion. There is an elbow bend to a very good degree. There is a swivel at the bicep. As for the hands, there is, of course, a rotation fully around at the wrist, and a really cool feature that they included, if you have Siege Jetfire or Shatterglass Jetfire, it has that really cool feature. Look really closely at the hand. If you open up the hand, that port or hole just kind of disappears where you can store the weapon, which I think is a really cool feature. I honestly think it's a lot more smooth in this than in Jetfire, because Jetfire's hand is so huge, so it's hard to actually open it smoothly. I think it actually looks a little bit better and works a little bit better on this copy, but that could just be me. As for the articulation of course, the legs, you can move these panels up just to, of course, get some added clearance. Let's move these panels out. Move the arms out just a little bit just to get some extra space, so the leg can kick that far forward on really nice ratchets. It can kick that far back. Unfortunately, this whole butt panel really does not move out of the way, and of course it can move that far out on that ratchet. There is a knee bend to a very good degree on a ratchet. There is a swivel, and there is a so-so ankle pivot. I think they could have done better, because the feet, not really much happens transformation-wise. Of course, you do fold up this foot for some of the modes, but this entire other assembly, you really don't change, so I think they probably could have done a bit of a better one, but a very minor complaint. So overall, very cool. I would say tolerance-wise and some problems, some nitpicks is, again, articulation could be better, but one thing that I have to mention is, you've probably seen me do this throughout the video, but these panels here do not really want to stay tabbed, so whenever this opens, the leg is kind of, loose. It wants to fold back up, so that's a bit annoying. Also, of course, since they're ratchets, sometimes they'll click out and then it's standing a little bit weird. So if you find me repositioning him, that is why the ratchet's a little bit odd. So, but everything else is very good. Really nice to have ratchets. That's always super cool. And I would say there's a few other areas that you can sort of, I guess, tweak into articulation. You can actually untab this whole assembly here. You have to hold it really tight. There's actually this whole butterfly joint that you can untap from the body. So if you want a more spread out motion, you can do that. I'm not really sure if that's officially a part of articulation or that was just there due to transformation. But you can use that if you want to, just to have more of a dynamic pose. But that's really nice they included that. But everything else, really good. Just a few tolerances like the panels. I think they could have done a better ankle pivot, but I really do like the feature of the kind of disappearing port in his hand. That's always really fun to do. But let's now get down to his many accessories. So first being actually is sort of a new one. So for a while now we have seen this nose cone section. Of course, you know it. It becomes the shield in Saber's mode. It also becomes, of course, the nose cone in his ship mode and the V-Star jet. But there's actually another feature of this becoming the hilt of the sword. So if you just actually push this peg out a little bit more, so it was, of course, in this position, you just yank it out, and now there is a whole slot, and you get this tab here, and that just tabs right into place. So that's actually a really cool feature. So you can store this sword actually in quite a few different ways. But I do want to say, unfortunately, one of them is a bit difficult. So since this post can move, I really would have liked it if it could lock, but it can't. It can be a bit annoying to put in his hand, because whenever I try and put it in his hand, it wants to collapse and push the sword out. So I really try and just take my time, and sometimes, as you can see, it will collapse like that. But there he is holding the sword in his hand. That is pretty much, I would say, the #1 way people are going to store the sword, which I think looks super cool. And you can kind of store the sword or display the sword a few different ways. You can have the blade facing forward, or you can have the blade facing sideways. I actually really like doing this pose where you have the hilt facing forward like that. I think that actually looks super cool. And I will quickly take the blade out and show you the other way. So you can have the blade angled like this, which is a bit hard to get in there, like that. sometimes it does not want to stay, but I have displayed it. It's a little bit hard, a little bit finicky, but you can tab it in there. It's just really, really tight. There we go, there we go. So you can have it more of a thin blade like that, which isn't my preferred look. That is just my opinion, but there is the number one way you can store the sword. I'm going to take it out of his hands. The second way, which you can also do, of course, most of these for the combined mode. I'm going to tab this back to the usual way. I like it this way. You can actually tab this onto his kind of hip skirt or little kind of cloak piece, which is super cool. So there is, of course, a post and port, and you can plug this into place like that. And I think that looks super cool. Of course, do be aware you do have to have some added space for the arm. You have to kind of move that out or it will bump into the sword. So you can have them in more of a samurai pose, which I think is pretty cool. I think that looks really, really nice. Another way, which probably is my least favorite way, you can actually store this blade inside the leg. So there is actually a gap inside there. I'm not going to drop it in fully because it's a bit of a pain to get out. You pretty much have to turn the figure pretty much completely upside down, but you can store it inside there pretty nicely. Of course, it will fully fit. I just don't want to put it in there all the way because it's kind of a pain to get out. But you can store it inside there. A bit unfortunate because there's really no assigned place to put this, again, in the combined mode, because of course Saber is stored inside there. So I guess you could give it to Victory Leo if you wanted to, or just leave it off to the side. But that is pretty cool in my opinion. Another way you can store the sword, which is pretty cool, you have to make this in the right configuration. So this is a bit of a finicky one. I'm going to move the camera down just a tad bit so you can see what I'm doing. So you actually require the shield for this, and you're going to want to have the sword attached like that, and then you have this port and this post, and you kind of just feed it through there like that, so you can store the sword on the shield, which I think is pretty cool. Just the hardest thing is getting it out, because of course it's a very cramped space, so there might be a sudden jolt when I remove that, so I do apologize ahead of time. So you can actually store the shields on his side, or on the side of the forearm. So there is slots there, and there's tabs here, and you kind of just tab this into place like that, and I think that's pretty cool. He can have his shield on his side. I prefer, of course, having a shield in his actual hand. I think that looks the best, but this option is quite nice. You can kind of, collapse all the accessories or store all the accessories in one space if you don't want them all spread out at a time, which is a nice feature that they included. So that's pretty cool. And for sword storage wise, that's pretty much it. So there's quite a bit of options. Of course, his hand, his skirt piece, and the shield. So a lot of really nice features. Probably my least favorite is the leg, because, yes, you can store the blade in his leg, but where do you put the hilt piece? It's kind of like, just leave it out to the side. So if they had another place to put that, I think I would have liked that option a little bit more. But let's just take this out of his arm like that. And again, apologies for the jolt. I'm just going to take this out and put that off to the side. Let's now take a look at the shield. So I already did pretty much show the first way, which is showing it on, or storing it on the forearm. And of course, the second way is you can store it in his hand. But the shield looks really nice. Unfortunately, on this copy of my Haslab Victory Saber, there is a bit of a little nick or paint chip there, but that doesn't bother me that much because I have two of them. But you can angle the hands like that to make sure the post is, or the port is facing out. And you want to have this handle facing in, and you can store the shield just like that. So there he has a shield, and I think that looks really cool. If you watch my videos for a long time, if you've seen any, I really do like shields, and when Hasbro does them, they typically turn out pretty good, and I think this turns out really good. This is probably one of my favorite looks for the figure in this mode and in the combined mode. And of course, you have to equip his sword. You have to have the classic kind of knight look. Let me just store this in his hand like that. And this, yeah, definitely gives me kind of knight samurai feels or vibes. And I think that looks super cool. That looks really, really awesome in my opinion. And that I know of, that's pretty much the main two ways of the shield you can store in his hands, or of course on his forearm. Definitely this is my preferred look, which looks really, really, really cool in my opinion. Let's take the sword out of his hand, because of course we have to move on to the V-Lock cannon. So you can store this in either hand or in either arm, which is pretty cool. So how I've seen it is you fold these pieces down. This one you can do after you want. So there's kind of a locked way you can do it. So have the arm kind of fully spread out. Of course, make sure the hand is closed so that post is available. And you're going to have this whole kind of panel section there, and you want it in between, of course, the shoulder and the forearm, just to kind of conceal it in there. So that just sort of wraps around there, and this post will go in there. And I typically will move this section last after, and this will just go over his hands. That really creates the fully, weaponized look. It's very, it looks pretty cool. Unfortunately, of course, since it's so huge, there's only a number of positions and poses you can do, and of course, moving it out is a little bit limited because how secure and attached it is to his arm. But I think that's a really nice feature. And of other ways of storing the V-Lock cannon, that's pretty much it. Of course, there's posts all over this weapon, so there is areas on the back that you can store it that are, I wouldn't say official, but by the book and by the instructions, this is the number one way they show you doing it, which that looks pretty cool. I really do like how the pieces cover the hands and cover the forearm, so it kind of looks like it's like coming out of his arm or like transforming out of his arm. So that is pretty cool. So I'm going to take this piece out of his hand like that, and of course you can just fold this piece back up just like that. We'll put that off to the side. As for the very last accessory that's really dedicated for him in this mode is Saber's blaster, and it looks pretty good in this mode, but again, the paint apps, it is severely lacking paint apps, and it really highlights that when you're displaying it next to such a colorful figure. There's yellow, red, blue, white, so it really highlights how boring this weapon is, but you can do more of a simplified look if you don't want the huge, massive V-Lock cannon for it. You can just display it like that, which I guess is more of a simplified look, and that's really the main way you can store that weapon. Again, there is mech-tech ports all over this figure. There's some of the legs. There's a ton on the back, so if you want to, you can store them in other areas, customize it a bit if you want to. Purely your choice, but let's now get down to some comparisons. That's pretty much it for accessories. Tons of accessories, tons of options, but let's now get down to it. So let's just store this sword in here like that. I want the full kind of classic knight samurai look, and we have to do this. We have to do the number one comparison. Yes, I know the blade is a little bit cut off, but I don't want to cut off his feet or his head or anything, so it's fine that this is a little bit cut off. So let's do, of course, the number one comparison. Here he is with his kind of partner. Here he is with Victory Leo, and they do look super, super cool next to each other, in my opinion. That looks absolutely awesome. Between the two, in my opinion, I like Star Saber just a little bit more. That's just my opinion. He is, of course, a much bigger figure, and there's a lot more articulation. That's just my opinion. I think he's a better figure, but they look super cool next to each other. You can put him in some awesome, crazy poses, so that's really, really nice to do. That's pretty much it for the first comparison. So let's now go down to, of course, some more mainline figures, just to show you how big this guy is. So here he is with a Selects Magnificus, and he just barely reaches his waist, so you can have a good understanding of how huge this figure is, but they do look pretty cool next to each other. And for another mainline or legacy release, here is with Minerva, another deluxe. And for one last comparison, here he is with G-Axis. And they overall do look pretty cool next to each other. So I would say he is, a lot of people say this figure is a Commander class figure. It's a Commander class figure. And of course, this isn't even the combined one, so it's going to get absolutely massive and huge. And I will, of course, adjust the camera whenever it's in the combined mode, because I want to absolutely show you all of the details and all areas of the combined mode as best I can. So that is pretty much it for Star Saber and Victory Leo. So let's now get down to, of course, the combined mode, Victory Saber. So I do want to let you know now, I might show if there is some new added articulation or anything like that. I'll probably show it. I think it does slightly change from me remembering. I'm pretty sure it does slightly change in articulation, of course, because you do add all of his bits and pieces to this figure here. But detail-wise, of course, there's some areas that have pretty much stayed the same, like the chest and the arms pretty much do stay the same, but there is some some new added areas. So detail-wise, I will probably cut it a little bit short, but I will show with him all the accessories stored on him. That'll look really, really cool. So let's now get down to transformation into Victory. Let's now get down to transformation into the fully combined Victory Saber mode. So what you're going to want to do is go to the arms. You can rotate at the wrist, of course, and then just flip this around, or flip the animal foot out. Do the same thing on their side. So just rotate at the hand, flip this around, and then you can flip these extra wing pieces out and extend the wings. And then there is a tab on the arm here, and there is a slot on the wing. So you're just going to kind of lock this whole assembly into place like that. Do the same thing on the other side, so just lock this into place like that. Tab that in. And then what you can do is go to the back, untab these cannons, and then apologies for the sudden jolt, but you're going to pretty much push this entire assembly out like that. And this can just go up to the side for now. What you're going to want to do then is rotate the head all the way around, and then just push this down into place like that. And then we can go to the other side here, rotate these cannons around like that, and you can have these a little bit angled up. And for the last step, you just push this panel down and back, and there we have the jetpack all done and complete. And we'll attach this to Star Saber in just a sec. We're just going to put this off to the side for now. We can now move on to the other piece. We're going to flip and the feet, and you're going to split this entire assembly down the middle, which is very challenging. There we go. You're going to fold out the feet, just push these out like that, push them out like that, and then you can push this little clip piece up. Then what you're going to want to do is go to the foot here, open up this panel, and fold this whole assembly up. And there is a tab and slots, and you'll just tab that into place like that. Do the same thing on the other side, so just open up this compartment, fold this up, tab that into place. Just make sure that tab aligns with that slot. There we go. As for the last step, this is just going to fold over, and there is a tab and of course a slot. We'll just tab right into place like that. Just make sure that aligns up nice and good like that. And that's just going to tab into place. There we go. And for the last two steps, you just bring this little piece out. There we go. And you'll flip up this little clip right here and flip it out. And there we have one foot all done. And if you didn't understand, I'm going to do it again. So you just hinge this, and then this tab is going to go right into that slot right there, which can be a bit challenging to line up. There we go. And for the last steps, you just bring these pieces out and up. Just get your nail in there, flip that up, and there we have all of the combined pieces of Victory Leo. So I'm actually going to go off cam and reposition everything, of course, so you can see everything, and we're going to combine all these pieces, of course, to make Victory Saber. So let's go and do that. So let's now combine all the pieces of Star Saber and Victory Leo together to form, of course, Victory Saber. So let's start with these bottom added feet pieces. So what you're going to do is fold in this foot piece, and then, of course, fold it in again. Do the same thing on the other side. And yes, the camera is super low right now because I'm actually going to raise it up a ton when this thing is fully finished. Now what you're going to want to do is get this whole clip right here, and it's going to go around these two sections right here, and this piece is going to go around the foot. So just kind of get that in like that, and this is just going to overlap the foot. Do the same thing on the other side, so just clip that around like that, and then of course you're just going to overlap the foot, and there we have that all done and good. And he is already a lot taller than he was before. And now for the other step, you're just going to go back here, and then this post will go right into that peg right there. Just gonna plug right into place like that. And just to solidify the connection, there is a tab and of course a slot. That's just going to tab right into place. And there we have Haslab Victory Saber, and that just looks super cool. Just for some finishing touches, I'm just going to try and zoom out and up a little bit, just so you can see the entire thing, hopefully. And now for one last step, you just tab these cannons in up at the top, and then of course you can angle these out, just a little bit of, tweaking and stuff. Things got a little bit messy, but there we have him fully complete, and wow, this thing is so cool. So let's quickly take a look at the details, because as you can see, of course, pretty much the main body of Star Saber has pretty much stayed the same. Really, the only added pieces are these added feet pieces, just to add some extra height, and of course the jetpack. So let's just quickly do an overview from bottom to top. So of course we have these new added pieces from Victory Leo, which definitely added quite a bit of height, and I really do like how they did this. I was really wondering during the whole process of production, like how are they going to do this? How are they going to attach these pieces to this figure and actually work? And I was hoping it was going to be a secure connection and it wasn't going to like easily pop off, but it's definitely a secure connection. So I'm just going to try and zoom in only on this section right here. Some really nice red and black, and again, it incorporates very, very well. If we do flip to the side, of course, looking very cool, some nice red and black and golds, and very, very nice. And of course you have the back of the legs with those really cool wing pieces, which have stayed the same. Of course we do have the legs. I'm just going to quickly cover those that I did mention before. Really nice yellow, blue, and I really do like all these kind of gunmetal gray sections on the inner leg and the outside of the leg there, which is super cool. And if we do go to the top of the figure, the crotch is really nice red and yellow there with some blue. Really like the knee pads. Again, super clever how they made those knee pads. Actually, the landing gear in the jet mode, it's super clever how they fit those in, and you can barely even notice they're there. Love the forearms with a little outline of blue around the entire edge. And of course, we have the really cool gimmick of the opening and closing hands with a nice blackish kind of gray for the hands. The chest, love that very reflective kind of gold foil look. It's not actually a stick or anything, but it's supposed to look like it, and it does a really good job. We'll have these huge engine pieces at the front, which I think is a super cool detail. The head sculpt looks amazing. Love the huge antennas, the blue for the face, the silver for the mouth guard, and some gunmetal gray for these kind of antenna pieces. And I love the two crest sections done in yellow. We have the huge shoulder pieces done in, of course, a red and white with that classic Autobot symbol there, looking very, very cool. And overall, very, very nice. And of course, there's the other addition of the huge jetpack there, which is super cool, and the wings. Unfortunately, they're very limited in articulation. I really would have liked if they had some more movement. They're pretty locked in there into place, and maybe they'll have some upgrade kit that kind of changes that, adds like an extra hinge so you can have more of a dynamic pose with the wings. But they do look very cool with all the spikes and the huge thrusters on the side. That looks super cool. And if you're interested what it looks from behind, overall, not bad. Not much hollowness. The jetpack is actually super secure. I'm really glad that. I was also wondering how they were going to do that, but there is actually a whole tab here, and there's a huge post there as well, so it is very secure. Also, these blasters also do tab into place as well, so it is not going anywhere. So that's pretty much it for details. Not, I would say, a ton has changed, but definitely the sheer size of this has definitely changed. I'm really glad I could get it all in shot. I'm hoping it's a good view. Hopefully it's not too blurred out by the lighting. It does get a bit out of view whenever I raise the guns, so I won't be raising them, but if you're interested, these do go up and side to side if you were wondering, so they are Blaster Piece compatible, and they can move up and down, so you can create some really cool dynamic poses. But that is pretty much it for details. As for articulation, not really much has changed, of course. The ankle pivot is not that good as before. Of course, we have a new foot now done in red. As for the wings, really, of course, you can use these. These are really, I would say, hinges from Transformation, but if you want to, you can slightly bend the tips, which I think looks a little bit odd to me. But everything else has pretty much stayed the same. Of course, the arms are slightly more limited because the wings are there, so they can't move as back as far as they could, but they still do have the outward movement. They still have the ratchets at the arms and the shoulders and everything, so quite a bit has stayed the same, which is good, but again, some areas have been limited due to the giant jetpack, but this looks so cool. So let's actually gear him up. Let's put all the accessories on this guy. So I'm actually going to attach the sword and shield and put that on his forearm. So I'm just going to plug this in. I'm not going to do, of course, I'm not going to show you how to do it because I already showed that before. Just going to plug that in there. Just use those tabs. I'm going to equip him with that, and that'll be pretty cool. Just tab this onto his forearm like that. There we go. Tab that in there. I think that looks pretty cool. And then I'm probably going to put the V-Lock cannon in the other hand, and I'm going to probably put this blaster in his other hand. I'm just trying to do like a quick pose. I would probably, of course, do a much better pose if I had time, but I'm going to just quickly put these in his hand just to have the full weaponized look for comparison. So let's just quickly close that hand there and add this to him, and this will also definitely make him very bulky and kind of hard to maneuver with the huge V-Lock cannon, but you're just going to, of course, plug that in his hand like that, and then just bring this panel out. This is just going to cover up the whole gap in the forearm there. Just kind of cover it up. Move this other panel down just to create the more cohesive look. And there we have all of the weapons on him, which looks super, super cool. Of course, you could completely deck him out with all those blast pieces, and you could definitely do more of a dynamic pose. Since I have a second copy, I'm just going to keep the second copy in this mode forever, and this one will be the one I transform for reviews and just for fun. And I have it in a really, really dynamic pose. If you want to see the pose I have him in, I actually made a short showing off both of my Victory Sabers in two different poses. I kept one and the combined V-Star Jet, and one, of course, in this combined one. It'll be in the short section on YouTube, so if you want to see that, go check that out. It's a full kind of just quick display video showing them, so it was a really cool pose. So you can completely dig this out. There's a ton of customization, and that is pretty much it for details and accessories. So let's now get down to some comparisons. So I'm going to start at the, of course, smallest size I have. So here he is with a deluxe Minerva, which does not, I would say pretty much does not even reach his knee, which is insane. So there we go. And here he is with Magnificus. And let's go up a size. Here he is with Voyager G-Axis. And up another size. Here he is with the Holiday Optimus Prime. Looking pretty cool together. And, of course, I actually added another figure just to show you how he looks next to Commander class. So I'm going to actually compare him to Siege Jetfire, which is a mostly white figure. So this might be blurred out to no tomorrow, so I do apologize if that happens. But as you can see, size-wise, they're pretty close next to each other in this combine mode. Again, big apologies, this thing is really blurred out like no tomorrow because it's a pretty much completely white figure, but they do look pretty cool next to each other, and size-wise, I'd say they're pretty close. I would say they're roughly the same size. Jetfire's backpack, actually, I think it goes just a tad bit past his guns, so I'd say maybe Jetfire's just a tiny, tiny bit bigger than Haslab Victory Saber here, but that is pretty much it for the comparisons. So that is actually all the modes, surprisingly. Hopefully this review is not like 3 hours long. I really tried to cut this short. I hope I didn't go too fast on some of the modes. I just really did not want this video to be super, super long. So that's pretty much it for all the modes. Let's now get down to the final thoughts of the Transformers Haslab Generations Victory Saber, starting in the combined mode. So since there is a ton of modes, you know, I typically will do final thoughts for a Deluxe or Voyager that only has 2 modes. I'm going to try and go as fast as I can, and of course not repeat a ton of the things I've already said. So let's start in the combined mode. Overall, really impressed. There's so much playability factor. As you can see, you can store the accessories in several different ways. You can store the sword like 3 different ways, the shield like 2, tons of options for playability. You can put him in some really cool poses. Here, I don't have him in such a crazy pose because lack of space. This thing is almost touching the roof of this shelf, so a bit of limiting here, but in big shelves you can do some awesome crazy poses. And of course you can store the V-Lock cannon there. He is Blastopiece compatible with a lot of his weapons. just looks so cool. And even without the weapons, he does have a major presence. He does have a huge presence. He's really big. I actually did compare him to Jetfire, so I would say he's roughly Siege Jetfire size, which is pretty good. I would say he's considered a commander class figure. He is definitely bigger than Motormaster, definitely bigger than Rodimus Prime, so he is a very, very big figure. Now moving on, of course, to the next mode. The Star Saber and, of course, Victory Leo modes. Overall, they're really cool. Star Saber, of course, I would say roughly does stay the same from this mode to the separate one. Of course, you are just taking the Victory Leo pieces off the feet and the back, so he doesn't have a jetpack anymore. Articulation, I would say roughly stays the same. All the features of storing the accessories is pretty much the same, and of course, height is definitely changed. So, but I really do like the combined and Star Saber mode. I really do like that. I probably prefer these modes over Victory Leo. I do like Victory Leo, but there is a few things in design traits that they probably could have done better. Victory Leo, I think is really cool. I like the huge cannons on his back. You can angle them forward. I prefer to have them facing up. That is how it shows in the instructions. But it does, of course, point out a huge glaring issue that there is hollowness on the underside of his cannon. So a lot of people really do not like that. But it really doesn't bother me. Of course, you can store the V-Lock cannon in his hand or Star Saber's hand, really just up to your own personal preference. It's really cool either way. Articulation is pretty good. Unfortunately, there is no waist rotation with sorry, I can't speak. With Victory Leo, unfortunately, there is not very good articulation because he splits in half, so due to transformation, he has no waist rotation, which is a bit unfortunate, which they really would have had to pretty much scrap that entire transformation if they wanted a waist rotation. They could not transform it that way. I really don't see a way they could have done that. But I can easily overlook it because it wasn't really them being lazy or them being cheap for not including it. It was a design trait. It was the part of the figure itself. It just couldn't work out. But I do like it. It's a really cool figure. I love the huge kind of horns or huge tusk pieces sticking out of his head. That looks super cool. And I have not experienced any problems with that plate or panel piece for transformation into any of his modes because I've heard a lot of reports of paint chipping. I've heard some reports of it snapping off. I have 2 copies. Hasn't happened yet, so maybe it's just a kind of a rare occurrence with some people. I do not know. Getting down to, of course, their other modes. So, getting down to Star Saber's separate jet mode. It's pretty cool. I probably prefer the combined V-Lock or V-Star jet mode. I prefer that look the most. But, of course, you can do the really cool feature of getting the Brain of Courage or the Brain Master and storing it inside there and have them piloting it, which is always really fun. You can store a lot of accessories on there, which is really cool. Unfortunately, I do think they probably should have included or just filled in some of those screw holes because it's not that visible in this mode, but on the back of the legs is where all the screw holes are, but that actually becomes the top of the jet. So all of those holes are very visible in that mode, which is kind of unfortunate. So it would have been nice if they included some, or I just filled them up to begin with. That would have been pretty nice. And also an option is you can separate Saber from the Star Saber jets, and he can have his own separate jet mode, and I actually quite like it. It's pretty small. I would say it's roughly, he's roughly a Cosmos-sized figure, maybe Cliff Jumper, Earthrise Cliff Jumper size figure. He's kind of small, but I actually really do like him. Love the design, lots of gold, really like the gold design. They actually, this is actually him right here, which is super cool. I like the wings. His accessory is not the greatest. It's way oversized as this one right here. The design, like the scope work is really cool. It looks definitely like a very futuristic Transformers weapon. I really do like it, but the size is way too big for such a small figure, and it really needed some paint apps. It's just gray. I mean, here you have Saber. He has like red, blue, white, really cool details, really cool gold kind of foil sticker design, and then he just has a huge oversized gray weapon. It really would have been nice if they had put in some paint apps there, but that is a very minor complaint because all the other accessories are really good in my opinion. For transformation from his separate jet mode to his Saber robot mode, very simple. It's very simple. You kind of just unfold the legs and that's pretty much it. Articulation with that figure, unfortunately, kind of limited. The waist rotation, it can move like side to side, but due to his wings being on his back, he cannot do a full 360. It's a little bit hindered due to the wings on his back, but everything else is pretty average. Like the design, a really cute, kind of cool, small deluxe that I do quite like. I think if his accessory was just a little bit better, I would have liked it more. Another thing to be note of, I'm going to mention it again. So, of course, the little brain of courage transforms into Saber's face. So, if you lose that tiny little thing, you will not have a face for that figure. So, do not lose that piece. It will be very, very bad. But I really do like the engineering of how it incorporates into Saber's chest and becomes his face. That's such a cool, really awesome feature that I was not expecting. Again, I'm not that familiar with the show, so it took me by surprise. Another thing to keep note of with the articulation with his head that really carries through to this mode because it's in there. The articulation for his head in both modes is quite limited because, of course, the Brain of Courage Master is inside there, so it can move side to side. I wouldn't push it because you could get it stuck in there or break it or snap it, something like that, because it's a very small little piece that is very delicate, so I would be kind of cautious with that, which is understandable for such a small little thing. And getting down to, of course, Victory Leo's transformation into his jet mode, it's pretty cool. A lot of people do not like the jet mode. I can understand that. There's quite a bit of kibble kind of tucked here and there. You can see bits of the lion mode, and of course you can store the V-Lock cannon on top, which is huge. It's very oversized. I think it looks pretty cool. It's one of those modes that just some people like, some people don't. It's okay. It's one of my it's one of the bottom list of my favorite modes. It's just okay. Overall, a very simple transformation as well. Now, of course, Victory Leo to his lion mode. I actually quite like his lion mode. My biggest problem with that mode probably is the tail. It's supposed to be like a tail for his lion mode. It's not a tail. It's not a tail. I think they could have done better with the budget they had because so many people back this. Kind of disappointing on that part, but it's not, I would say, the most devastating blow for me because I watched reviews before I got this, so I saw it. I know what to expect. I heard a lot of people talking about it, so I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. I think they could have done better. I don't know, it would probably be hard to store, of course. You do have to realize, he splits in half. He splits in half to form the feet of this figure, so they have to be able to store a tail that actually looks good for the lion mode in somewhere here without it obtruding in this mode or any of the other modes. In the jet mode, they didn't want some huge tail sticking out some random spots. So I did mention that before, that if they had done a good tail, it could have compromised the other modes. So it might have been kind of their only option. I don't know. And getting down to the lion mode, other details are super cool. Really like the lion face with a huge tusk sticking out of his mouth. That's super, super cool. I think they did a really good really good lion face, and it's really cool how you can actually move the mane out and make it like kind of stick out more, look a little bit bigger. Unfortunately, they kind of compress quite a bit, so it's a fun feature, but it doesn't work that good. But you can store all of his accessories, the giant 2 cannons, the V-Lock cannon on top, which is pretty cool. And now, of course, getting down to transformation into the combined jet mode, the V-Star Jet, I think it's super cool. Of course, you can incorporate the flight stand into this mode and into the V-Star Jet mode. I did show this flight stand for the V-Star Jet mode. I'm unable to show the stand for this one, unfortunately, because my space just does not allow it. It just does not work. But if you're interested in how it works, it's very simple. There's just this huge port in its back, and there's a post, and it just plugs right into place. It's a very simple thing, but unfortunately, my review space is just too small, and this figure is too big to fit, so that is unfortunate. But if you want to see what it looks like, I did, again, have a short. I made a short on YouTube showing my display, and one of them was on the flight stand. But it's a really nice feature that they included the flight stand, and when they first revealed it as one of the tiers, I was quite worried it was going to crack, because it is transparent plastic, but it's very, very thick, so I am not really that worried of it breaking or cracking anytime soon. I think it looks a little bit better in this mode than the V-Star Jet mode, but that's just my opinion. But the V-Star Jet mode is huge. Of course, a lot of the features from the other jets stay the same. You can store the Brain of Courage in there. You can store the accessories on there. Of course, you do add Victory Leo onto the back with the huge wings, which looks crazy. It's kind of a hodgepodge. There's a lot of different colors and a lot of different shapes and everything, but it looks pretty cool. It looks pretty cool. But that is pretty much it for all the modes. Yes, they did have a base mode, which I'm leaving that for last because it's kind of an okay mode. I don't think I'm going to use it that much or display it that much because it's probably, I would say, my least favorite mode. I would like it more if you could store the shield better. That's pretty much everyone's main problem with that mode. You're supposed to attach the shield to the front for it to become like a tower, like a piece of the base, which is in concept cool and creative, but it does not stay tabbed in. Which is kind of odd because the same tabs used for the shield are used here, and that connection for this area is very secure. It stays very, very well. I've never had a problem with that. On both of my figures, it stays super securely and well. So I don't really get why it cannot stay. So maybe they could have probably thought of that a little bit better. I think probably why it doesn't work is because this was like a last minute mode. It was like a last minute thought for them. Because, you know, the only way you could make this mode is with the shield. So if we didn't reach the tier with the shield, I'm assuming it was the third tier, I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, that was the third tier. And of course, if we didn't reach it, we couldn't make the base mode. So I think they were kind of like, oh, well, if they don't reach the third tier, they don't get it, we're fine. It doesn't matter. Because I'm pretty sure the base mode was never in the show. I could be wrong, but I don't think it was. So it was kind of like a last minute thought for them. I don't think they were going to sculpt, you know, entire pieces just for this mode. It was just like a bonus extra thing. It's fun. It's cool and creative. I think a younger kid or a younger person would probably like it quite a bit. Me personally, I don't really like it that much, but I could see what they were going for. I think if they just put a little more time and money into it, I think it would have been better. But overall, that is pretty much it for the final thoughts. Hopefully I was not rambling on too much. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. I do apologize for the delay. This review took quite a bit of time. I'm hoping this review isn't like 5 hours long, because there's so many modes, there's so many pieces, and so much to talk about. I tried to kind of cut down some articulation and cut down some details, because again, I did not want this review to be 5 hours long. But it's an amazing figure. It's a really good Haslab. I'm really looking forward to Deathsaurus. That'll look super cool. I'm assuming probably my Deathsaurus review will probably be better, because that's only 2 modes. This is like 8 or like 9 or something crazy. But it's a really good figure. It's a really good figure. I think it'll be pretty hard for them to top. I think Deathsaurus, it'll be pretty hard to top this, but I'm still looking forward to that. That's going to be really cool with those new mini cons. But let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below. I highly suggest to get it. If you didn't back it, yes, you could get it on eBay, but to a degree, do not pay over, don't overpay to an insane degree of like $500. It was a $200 toy. It's a Haslab, yes, so it is very rare, so I'd say probably 300 max or something like that, but it's a really awesome figure. Hope you enjoyed this review. I spent quite a bit of time on it. I'm almost at 700 subscribers, so if you could subscribe, that would be really cool. Getting me to 700 subscribers would be amazing. I'm not really sure what my 700 subscriber special is. It could be this, or it could be some other video. Let me know what I should do for my 700 subscriber special in the comment section down below. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.